August 15th, Board of Selectmen meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Why is this on my thing?
We'll start with the reading of the agenda. We'll go over our July 25th meeting minutes, then our July 26th special Board of Selectmen workshop meeting minutes. We'll then move on to community relations, announcements, and open forums. We have 3 items under appointments and resignations. We have an appointment for the Lakes and Ponds Committee / Dam Monitor. We have an appointment for the Old Home Day Committee, and we have an appointment for the Technology Committee. We have 4 scheduled appointments tonight. We have a 6:40 appointment with the Council on Aging. We have a 6:45 appointment for the Charlton Housing Authority. We have a 6:50 appointment for a poll hearing on Brookfield Road. And we have a 7 o'clock appointment for metal detecting at the militia lot. Under new business, we have 5 items. Number 1 is the site plan revision application for Gunter Estates. Item number 2 is a special 1-day liquor license request for a wedding. Number 3 is to set the special town meeting, the dates and the calendar. Number 4 is to establish a school building committee on the request of Selectman Singer. And number 5, the town administrator's performance review. Under old business, we have 4 items. Number 1 is the Mass DOT Route 20 discussion. Number 2 is a license permits issued by the Board of Selectmen discussion. Item number 3 is the marijuana advisory group. And item number 4 is the FY18 Board of Selectmen goals and objectives. We'll then move on to community reports, Board of Selectmen policy reviews, and then the town administrator's report. And then any other business unknown at the time of posting. And our next regular selectmen's meeting will be September 12th. With that, what are the board's wishes for our July 25th regular meeting minutes?
Through the chair,
Mr. McGrath.
I make a motion that we approve the July 25th meeting minutes as written.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstains? Chair votes aye. Motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Item number 3 is our meetings, a special Board of Selectmen workshop. What is these board's wishes with the minutes?
Through the chair,
Mr.
I
McGrath.
make a motion that we approve the July 26th BoS workshop minutes as written.
I second.
Thank you. Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes with 3 ayes and 2 abstentions. Thank you. We'll now move on to announcements. The Charlton Fire Department would like to remind everyone to keep lighters and matches away from children. Teach them that those items are tools for adults, not toys for them. Old Home Day Weekend 2017, happiest time of the year. Saturday, September 2nd, will be the Saturday evening. The Saturday evening will kick off event starting at 6:30 with a concert provided by Throwback to the 60s, followed by fireworks at the Overlook communities. Concessions will be available, and fireworks will begin around 9 p.m. Sunday, on September 3rd, the Charlton High School Alumni Association annual meeting for all students who went to Charlton High School will begin at 12:30 p.m. at the Charlton Senior Center. Events include dinner served at 1 p.m. and the annual Alumni Association meeting, followed by news from schoolmates and classmates. And then on Monday, September 4th, Labor Day, the annual Soapbox Derby will begin at 7 a.m., as well as the annual Charlton Road Race at 9 a.m., with a kids run at 11:30 a.m., and the kids bike race at 11:15 a.m. Visit the craft fair, art show, lumberjack contest, and frog jumping contests. There'll be lots of vendors. The finale of the day, from 2 to 2:30 p.m., will include a community awards for citizenship and community service. The grand parade through the Charlton Center will step off at 3:30 p.m. for Masonic Home. Children can decorate their doll carriages, bikes, or wagons, and join the parade. For more information, please visit townofcharlton.net. The town hall will be closed on Monday, September 4th, in observance of Labor Day. Are there any other announcements? Is anyone here for open forum? Seeing none, we'll move on to our first item under appointments and resignations, the appointments for the Lakes and Ponds Committee / Dam Monitor for Prindle Pond. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. One of the board's appointments each year are dam monitors. Todd Gerard, our conservation agent, is working with the Lakes and Ponds Committee to have dam monitors for each lake in town that should have one. Attached is a request from the Prindle Lake Association requesting that Andrew Visser be appointed as the Lakes and Ponds Committee member as well as the Prindle Lake Dam Monitor. Both the Conservation Commission and the Lakes and Ponds Committee would recommend the appointments.
Thank you very much, and thank you both for coming. If you could entertain a quick question for me, what exactly is the role of a lake dam monitor, besides watching a lake?
To answer the chairman's question, the dam monitor is to have eyes from the pond or the local community right on the dam itself. So we routinely go out, inspect it quarterly, make sure it's maintained, things like that. But having a dam monitor will have someone right on the lake to address any questions. Say there was a hurricane coming and everyone was concerned. They'd contact Andrew. Andrew would be in contact with us and we'd have a reaction plan. So the dam monitor is the local resident who would look, see if there's problem, maybe there's vandalism or loitering. They can contact the town and then we can take action from there. But it's more of get the local people on the lake to take a look at their dam and keep tabs on it.
Wonderful. Yes,
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble.
Has anyone in the past been a monitor there at Prindle Lake before?
Yes, in the
Okay.
past. So we went for a couple of years without a dam monitor, and now we just want to make sure that we have a dam monitor in place going forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
And what are the wishes of the board then?
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I make a motion that we appoint Andrew Visser as the Lakes and Ponds Committee member from Prindle Lake and also to be the Prindle Lake Dam Monitor.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions, any noes? Seeing none, chair votes aye, motion passes. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Thank you for
Before you
stepping
go,
up.
Thank you very much.
I have a question
Oh, yes,
before you go.
Mr. Swenson. Sure.
What's going on at Prindle with people doing things to the dam and worried about the level of the water and it affecting wells and that type of thing?
So what's going on at Prindle Pond is we had some people put some boards, we'll call them flash boards, to raise the pool elevation higher than the designed pool elevation. Once the pool elevation was raised, I had to take time to lower it in a controlled manner. Now we finally got it back to the pool elevation that it should be, no delta in it. And some people on the pond would like to see the water level up, raised up a little bit. Some would like to see it static. So right now, I'm working with Robert Sims from CDR McGuire to come up with a feasibility study on what would have to be done, the steps and procedures to see if we could raise that pond up.
Is it well issues that are the concern?
Concerns were erosion, some people had well issues, some people had flooding issues, cellar taking on water, and septic systems.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the board this evening for taking action with Mr. Visser, and I look forward to working with him and the town and getting Prindle Pond squared away with its management.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Visser, for stepping up.
Thank you, Mr. Visser.
Right, with that, we'll move on to item number 2 under appointments for the Old Home Day Committee, and I'll read the memo. Attached are 2 talent bank forms from Victoria Tinsley and Ray Delisle, seeking to be appointed to the Old Home Day Committee. They have been active with the committee and would like to make it official. Ms. Craver would recommend the board make the appointments. Kathleen Walker, Chairman, will be here if you have any questions, and will also update the board and community on events from Old Home Day. Ms. Walker?
Thank you very much. We are delighted to present to the selectmen 3 names to be joining the Old Home Day Committee, who Joe just read. And Victoria is here with us, right here, and Ray is here with us. And Sabrina couldn't be here with us tonight, but she also has filed a talent bank form and would like to join us.
Wonderful. And what is Sabrina's last name?
Webb.
So what is it?
Webb,
Webb, okay.
yep.
Sabrina Webb. All right, what are the board's wishes for Ms. Webb, Mr. Delisle, and Ms. Tinsley?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I would move to make all the requested appointments as specified.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Just a comment.
Mr. Singer?
Thank you to Ms. Walker and everyone on the committee. I think, people need to understand in this town what a blessing it is to have an Old Home Day, and it doesn't go off without you guys. So it's something very special about this town and people who make this happen.
A lot of people don't realize what kind of hours are put into it, so thank you for stepping up. So, with that.
Well, that's a good, oh, I'm sorry, you got to vote.
Oh, yeah. Do you want it official? Is there any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What Mr. Singer just said is a good segue into our appeal to the citizens of Charlton. It costs somewhere around between $13,000 and $15,000 to run Old Home Day weekend, which includes the fireworks. And we do it all with donations. The town does come, give us $500. They used to give us $6,000, but fell on hard times for a while. And so we are grateful for any donations. And there'll be a banner going up across the street of Masonic Home Road in a day or two with the names of everybody that gave over $250. And then another plaque will be at the gazebo with the people that gave under $250. So, but right now, I'd like to take this opportunity. This is the best part of Old Home Day is the award ceremony. And by the way, Rick is the Master of Ceremonies at Old Home Day, and we're very grateful for him doing this because it's a hard job. It's a long day. Anyway, the award ceremony will take place at 2 o'clock, and this year the Citizen of the Year that the Old Home Day has agreed upon is Rob Thomas. As you know, Rob runs the road race for many, many years, and he just stepped down from that. The honorary parade marshal is Kevin Moran. The Community Service Awards are to Mike Zareski, Janet Cullen, Jenny Frizella, who's here with us, and Heather Clements. The Youth Service Award is to Haley Sanchez. The Humanitarian Award is to Lisa and Kyle Broadier. And the Business Award is to Charlton Optical. And this year, we're going to once again give a posthumous Community Service Award to Peter Cooper Sr., who is very deserving of it. So we would be grateful if all of you could be there during that award ceremony and help us present the certificates and awards to all these really fine people of Charlton. So I'd just like to have a few people here mention some of the things that are going on that day. Who would like to step in? Jenny or Todd?
Absolutely welcome. Please make sure you speak right into the mic so all of us at home can hear you.
Okay. My name is Jenny Frisella. I live up at the Overlook. I'm also one of the nominees for the Citizen of the Community Award, whatever it is. But I'm also in charge of fireworks night vendors, and we do have some more vendors than we usually have had. If you're interested in what they are, we have novelties, we have fried dough, we have kettle corn, we have ice cream, we have mac and cheese, and possibly curly fries, plus the band that starts actually around 6 o'clock. The vendors get there between 5 and 6, so they were there all evening. Usually at 9 o'clock the fireworks start. It's very impressive. And we're doing as much as we did last year because of raising enough money to do it, but as Kathleen said, everything is by volunteer, whether it's personal or business, and so we can use all the help we can get with it. It's a lot of work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
So I'm still Todd Gerard. I'm just wearing a different hat now. I'm the recreation agent. Old Home Day. Every year I take an active part in Old Home Day, and I take one event, and I help run that. Last year it was the Soapbox Derby. We're one of only 2 towns in the whole state that still do soapbox. I think that's really great. But this year we'd like to expand our use more over to the fields behind the library. And what we're going to do over there is Charlton Rec Friends is going to do a fundraiser for the skate park, skate/bike park. We're going to have a bounce house over there. We're going to have kid activities run by these 2 young ladies here that are sack jumping contest, the 3-leg hopping contest, a balloon throwing contest, and a pie eating contest. Next to that, I brought on a new game this year to Old Home Day that I think is a little bizarre. I always like to mix it up, and it's the Scottish Highland Games. So we're gonna have some large people throwing heavy objects on the field. I think it would be really something
like fun.
different for Old Home Day, and I hope everybody comes down and enjoys seeing that. But make it a point to leave the Climate and come down to the sports fields and see our next generation taking charge and running an event that they've set up themselves. I'm really looking forward to watching the kids in charge of our own recreation. So please come to Old Home Day and see some of the new ideas that we have mixing it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Singer? Nope.
Hi, I'm Darlene Imco Rollins. I just want to mention that Kathy Keel does a lot of work still with Heather, Kathy Lean's daughter, behind the scenes with the parade. She's the one that organizes it all. So that's a lot of work, and I just want to mention that. Everybody else mentioned everything else. You know what goes on every year. We work our butts off for it to make the community come together. And it's the community that brings us together. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for your thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I just want to say one more thing. The brochure will be out this week. We finished the final phases of it today.
Oh, perfect. Will that be at the town hall and the library? Wonderful. Mr. Singer?
Just a quick question. Will there be a GoFundMe set up for it this year? And if there is one set up, can the town be made aware so we can promote where it would be to help raise money?
We did that the first year we got the fireworks, and it worked out wonderfully. In fact, I think it was your idea.
Yeah.
And it was great. It gave us the boost that we needed to start the fireworks, because the fire department had always done it before. We've been fortunate enough to get enough funding so that we don't need it right now, maybe in the future.
But they'll still accept donations.
Definitely. Right.
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble?
Very, very quickly, Kathleen, as long as you're on mic, can you tell people where to send their donations for Old Home Day?
Sure,
If they don't
just
know?
Town of Charlton, make the check out to the Town of Charlton, care of Old Home Day, and it'll go into the Old Home Day account.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank
Thank you
you all.
for stepping up, and I look forward to Old Home Day. And for those of you at home, for more information, please visit townofcharlton.net. And we'll now move on to our third appointment for the Technology Committee. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Our Finance Director, Donna Foligo, and Danny Dowd from the Police Department have expressed an interest in being appointed to the Technology Committee. I had a conversation with the chairman, and she feels it would be beneficial to have them appointed as part of the team. Therefore, you are asked to make the appointments with the expiration date of June 30th, 2018, as these are yearly appointments.
Thank you, Ms. Craver. And what are the board's wishes?
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I make a motion that we put the Finance Director, Donna Folio, and Dan Dowd from the Police Department onto the Technology Committee with their appointment expiration date of June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to our first item, first scheduled appointment, our 6:40, and I apologize for the lateness of it, with the Council on Aging. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. We were notified by the Council on Aging that Irene Levangelin would not be seeking reappointment. The opening was placed on the cable channel and the town's website. 3 requests for appointment were received from Darlene Imco Rollins, James Russell, and Vicki Thompson. The Council on Aging Board interviewed the candidates and would recommend the appointment of James Russell. The vote for appointment must be done jointly and by roll call. Vote by both boards, and the term expiration date would be June 30th, 2020.
Thank you, and I would welcome the Council on Aging up to the front to open the meeting and to take part in this joint appointment.
And is James Russell here?
And is Mr. Russell here?
We got just about everybody on the committee here, Gail Stokes and Joan Malinowski.
Sue
Sue Crockett. Kind of new with these names.
Yeah.
What? You said it.
Yeah, no, he can't.
Klaus McCovis, the attorney. And this is Jim Russell, a new appointee.
Hello and welcome. I will entertain a motion to appoint them.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I again make a motion to make the requested appointments.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion and second. Is there any discussion on the motion? We'll do by roll call vote. Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Ms. Noble?
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Swenson? Aye. Mr. Singer?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Welcome aboard.
And thank you.
Thank you.
very much for your
Thank you, Mr.
service.
Russell.
And the Council on Aging just wants to put on record, we had 3 outstanding candidates for this position this time. We're really proud that our seniors step up, and the volunteers downstairs, we always want to recognize. Just this past month, we had a volunteer recognition where we took a cruise on the Indian Princess on Webster Lake, and it was a fantastic event, both for the board to recognize its volunteers and for the volunteers itself. And we were glorifiedly blessed in our cruise that an eagle and that's nesting on Webster Lake was somewhat greeting us throughout a good portion of our tour.
Oh, wow.
Very nice.
Well, extra bonus.
The flag was off the end of the boat and the eagle flew by. It was
Lovely.
just, got chills. It was
Perfect.
Perfect postcard right there.
Yeah.
We thank you.
I recommend the other two interested people to, there's a lot of positions in town.
There's always a
so-
position that's opened, either with us or with other positions in town, and I know some of the candidates also have been, serve in other capacities, so, we're welcome to have Jim now, and, in the future, I'm sure that we'll still see some great candidates.
Absolutely.
These 2 candidates have offered to do crafts, and Deb is gonna fill us all in on chip-in, which we really didn't know much about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's gonna be nice, yeah.
It's fantastic. Thank you again. Thank you for,
Thank you.
welcome aboard. and
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Take care, and good night.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our second appointment, 645, with the Charlton Housing Authority. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir, we were notified by the Charlton Housing Authority that they had an opening and placed it on cable and the town's website. One letter was received from Kathy Kuehl seeking to be reappointed to the Charlton Housing Authority. At the time of the town election this year, the state would not allow the board member whose term was expiring to run for reelection. Since that time, they have said that the person could be appointed until the next town election. Mrs. Kuehl has been serving on this board and would like to continue. The Charlton Housing Authority would recommend the reappointment. The appointment must be done jointly and by roll call, and Mrs. Kuehl did call and sends her apologies. She could not make it tonight.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Mike Sullivan, the chairman of the Charlton Housing Authority Board, and this is Cedric Flowers and Jerry Babineau.
Singular.
Yes, no S. And we're call a meeting to order, and we form a quorum. And just for the purpose of asking you to appoint Mrs. Kuehl back to the board, I do have we do have a motion.
Yep.
To make a motion to you that I'd just like to read.
Please, if you could, speak right into the microphone.
Oh, so you can hear it.
Have a seat.
You didn't have to.
Yeah, please, relax. You're welcome here.
This is a motion to selectmen regarding the appointment to the Charlton Housing Authority. Whereas the Charlton Housing Authority Board of Directors has voted to request the Charlton Board of Selectmen to make an interim appointment to the CHA Board to fill the vacancy of a seat between the current time and the next town election cycle. And whereas Mrs. Kathleen B. Cooley of 82 Ramshorn Road, Charlton, has occupied a seat on the board for many faithful years to great effect and wishes to continue to fulfill those duties until the next town election cycle, therefore, the Charlton Housing Authority Board hereby respectfully requests the Charlton Board of Selectmen appoint Ms. Cooley to the seat left vacant as a result of state regulations, such as they currently exist, on the CHA Board of Directors.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I would move to appoint Kathy, excuse me, back to her seat on the Charlton Housing Authority.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Swenson?
I'm curious as to the rationale as to why the state wouldn't let her run for reelection.
It had term limits. Is that, my understanding
Is that
is that there were term limits.
I can address that.
Please.
The state has, in that slot, the state now requires a resident to be
Oh,
on the
okay.
board.
I was misinformed.
As Kathleen was not a resident, she was not eligible to run for that office. The state has not resolved this problem, so the state told us that temporarily to fill this position, you could appoint her.
So you couldn't be on the ballot if you were not a resident, but you could do a special appointment?
Correct.
Okay.
But she's now a resident?
No, she doesn't need to be a resident.
No, I understand that, but she lives down on Ramshorn Road, doesn't she?
No, a resident of the housing.
A resident of the housing authority, my mistake, I'm sorry.
So
I thought
does-
you meant just of the town, but a resident of the housing authority itself.
Right.
Okay.
This is a position
Gotcha.
that's
Yep.
newly
Yep.
been created
Okay.
to
Got it.
make sure that a resident of the housing authority is on the board.
Got it, okay, thank you.
And just to note, Charlton was ahead of the curve on this because Mr. Flower is a resident. We already have a resident on the board.
But I do not fill that slot.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
That just flip
little
you.
snafu,
Well, eventually that may work.
easier said than done, so this is.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? We'll go by roll call vote. Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Ms. Noble.
Aye.
Ms. Babineau. Mr. Flower.
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan.
Aye.
Mr. Swenson.
Aye.
Mr. Singer.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very much, and welcome back, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For the minutes, Ms. Graber.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Just put it on top of that thing right there, and we'll give that.
We'll now move on to our 6:50 appointment for the poll hearing for Brookfield Road.
Wow.
Ms. Graber?
Yes.
You said, we were just talking about that over here,
Love
the
it.
signature?
She's amazing.
Correct, that's perfect.
Attached, you will find a request from National Grid and Verizon New England seeking to install one jointly owned pole on Brookfield Road. Also attached is the notice that was sent to the abutters. This request has been forwarded and approved by both the chiefs of police and the chief of police and highway superintendent. The chairman should open the public hearing by reading the notice as sent to the abutters.
Thank you, I will do so right now. The Charlton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 15th, 2017, at 6:50 PM in the Selectmen's Meeting Room at 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. 01507, to act on a request from National Grid and Verizon New England seeking permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Brookfield Road. National Grid to install one joint owned pole on Brookfield Road, beginning at a point approximately 1,400 feet north-northwest of the center line of the intersection of Old Sturbridge Road. National Grid to install P23-50-54 to the north-northwest, P23-54 to the north-northwest from P23 on Brookfield Road. Anyone wishing to be heard on this matter should appear on the date and time specified or submit any concerns in writing. And the public hearing is now open at 7:01. Ms. Graber, have we received any concerns in writing?
No, sir.
Sir, is there anyone here for the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. A motion, 2 seconds to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, chair votes aye, motion passes. And what are the board's wishes for
Through the
accepting
chair.
it? Mr. McGrath?
I make a motion that we allow National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Brookfield Road, beginning at a point approximately 1,400 feet north-northwest of the center line, the intersection of Old Southbridge Road. National Grid to install P23-50-54 to the north-northwest from P23 on Brookfield Road.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our 7 o'clock appointment for metal detecting of the militia lot. Ms. Graber?
Yes, sir. We received an email from Jim Ative, who has been working with Frank Morrill on a project regarding the Charlton Historic District. He has assembled a team of some of the most elite metal detectorists in the Northeast to retrieve historical artifacts for the Ryder Tavern. the schoolhouse lot and church on September 2nd, 2017. He's looking for permission from the board to detect the militia lot as well. Any findings would belong to the town and will be given back to the town. In reaching out to Mr. Morrell, he said that someone from the town will be present during this work. We have scheduled him for 7 o'clock, but I do not see him at this time.
Fair enough. The board's wishes, would you like to table this until he possibly comes and then act on this later on? Or would the board like to take this up now?
I don't see any reason we just can't.
Yeah.
I agree.
There's
Fair
not
enough.
a lot of heavy lifting.
Then what are the board's wishes?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I would move to grant permission to also metal detect the militia lot.
I'll second that.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any discussion? That's, of course, with the caveat that, that someone will be there with him, and anything he finds will be given to the town.
Yes, as described.
Perfect.
I would just like to thank them for including the word detectorists.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that word before.
That, and it was nice to see Frank Morrell's name in here.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very much. Now, we'll move on to new business. Item number 1, a site plan revision application for the Gunter Estates. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Attached is a request from the planning board they received from Burton Engineering on behalf of Gunter LLC for Gunter Estates definitive subdivision plan revision application. The revision application proposes to reduce the size of the previously approved proposed residential subdivision design plan from 59 single-family home lots to a revised total of 31 single-family house lots to be assessed southerly of Boucher Road. The easterly portion of the property that project is currently before the planning board for a site plan review. You are asked to review the attached and forward any comments or concerns to the planning board no later than Thursday, August 16th.
Thank you, Ms. Craver. Does the board have any comments or concerns?
Just a question.
Mr. Singer?
This street, is this off of Boucher Road? Is that off of Old Worcester?
Yeah, it's one of the small side streets that.
You go to the end, it veers right to 20, but if you go straight, it's on the right?
Correct.
So you know exactly where that street was, yeah.
It's all field.
For now.
Yeah.
Any other discussion or comments, concerns? Ms. Noble?
How much land are we talking about for 31 single-family houses?
I think I want to say the total project with everything on the side was somewhere around 70 acres, maybe even a little bit more. Correct.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, because they had to have open space. There was open space because they were doing reduced frontage lots also, I think. So I would say probably, it's just in the neighborhood of 70 acres.
Okay. Is there any other interest in the property for any other uses besides the residential houses and the solar array?
Kurt Meskis, Building Commissioner, Zoning Enforcement Officer. Having looked at the plans, it is now privately owned
Okay.
by the Gunther Estate.
Mm-hmm.
And they had provided and put forth this larger subdivision about 2 years or 3 years ago, and have reduced the size of the subdivision as the notice has indicated, and are working with another entity to build a solar field on some of it. Mr. McGrath is right, as I remember reviewing the plans, there is a considerable open space kept in permanent, in perpetuity to be open space. So under our zoning bylaw, or under our subdivision bylaw, they're allowed slightly narrower streets, slightly smaller lots in exchange for this permanent open space easement, which is accessible and has an access easement to it for never to be developed again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good answer. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Do we have anything to send to the planning board, Ms. Craver? I don't think we do.
No, you don't need to.
Perfect. Then we'll move on to item number 2 under new business, a special one-day license request for a wedding. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Attached is a request from Demary, and I will not say this name correctly, I apologize, Gutierrez, for a special liquor license for wine and malt beverages to be used for a wedding on September 23rd, 2017, from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. at Camp Jocelyn. This request has been forwarded and approved by the Building Commissioner, Fire Department, and Police Department. Per the board's policy, the license, if the days requested are approved, should be issued for 2 additional days for the following reasons. September 22nd, to allow the delivery of alcohol to the establishment where no sales would be allowed. September 23rd, for sale on the approved date and time as listed. And September 24th, to allow for pickup of any unused alcohol. Again, no sales would be allowed. These dates would be reflected on the license. I would recommend the board approve the special license as requested.
Thank you. And what are the wishes of the board?
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I make a motion that we approve the special one-day liquor license for September 23rd with the additional dates of September 22nd and September 24th on the license to allow delivery and pickup of the alcohol.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. And now, item number 3, setting the special town meeting, the date and the calendar. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Special town meeting time has come upon us. Given that you will be holding one meeting in August, attached is a proposed calendar which has you opening the warrant tonight, and the special town meeting to be held on Monday, October 16th, 2017. We have confirmed the date is available with the school, town council, moderator, and town clerk. The calendar has you closing the warrant Tuesday, September 12th. Just a note that special town meetings are normally have been held on Tuesdays, but the moderator had a conflict with her schedule for Tuesdays. Tonight, if you have no revisions, we ask you to approve the special town meeting calendar and open the warrant. I had a department head meeting where I asked them to begin the process with their boards and committees. To date, I anticipate that there may be personnel and bylaw proposals, zoning bylaw changes, and capital requests. I will have a preliminary list for you at your next meeting. As usual, if departments want a warrant article and do not have the exact wording, I will encourage them to place request a placeholder so that appropriate language can be developed.
Thank you. And what is these board's wishes for approving the calendar and opening the town meeting warrant?
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I make a motion that we approve the calendar and we open the special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is second. Any discussion? It seems like these meetings come faster and faster every year. Seeing no discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item number 4 on new business, establishing a school building committee from Selectman Singer. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. At the board's May 23rd meeting, Selectman Singer asked the board to consider establishing a school building committee. The committee would be tasked with providing an analysis to the economic impact to the town of Charlton should we de-regionalize and go our own high school and leave Shepherd Hill. What would be the economic impact on the town to build our own school, benefits to staying regionalized, benefits to deregionalizing? Ms. Noble also added that she would like to look at the quality of education and the quality of life for the student body and see what deregionalization would do for them. What is the board's wishes?
Thank you, Ms. Craver. I'll hand it over to Mr. Singer since this was your item.
That's fine. I made this request because, as we all know, there have been a lot of discussions regarding schools the last couple of years. And I've mentioned this many times, although it does seem as though Prop 2.5 overrides are becoming more and more of a realistic possibility of them occurring and succeeding. And to me, if you were going to look at possibly doing an override for schools, then we should look at, well, if we're going to go that far, would it really be that much of a difference to just do it for our own high school? And actually start doing some research, because right now, the town of Charlton and our taxpayers I'm sorry, but for lack of a better way of saying it, get the short end of the stick when it comes to regional transportation, as well as funding the school. We pay twice as much per student than the town of Dudley does. So if we're going to potentially even consider a Prop 2.5 override, I'd like us to do this analysis and find out if we're going to do that, if it would make sense just to de-regionalize and have our own school again, our own high school.
Thank you. And what are the wishes of the board? Any discussion?
I think we should look at it, just to see what the difference financially is, what would we lose and what would we gain financially, you know, if we deregionalize. When regionalization was first brought up years and years ago, it was a good thing because the state did help you. And especially where Charlton was more of a rural community than Dudley was at the time. Dudley had the higher population, I believe. It worked out well for us, and it still works out well. I mean, we have a good education system over there, but I think that it behooves us to look at it to see, you know, what are the pluses and minuses. As we know, as Rick usually likes to bring up, the state, as they mandate things and they help you out, they always pull the rug out from under you. And we've had that happen on a lot of things. They're supposed to fund regional transportation 100%. How often has this board seen them be thankful that we're getting 65, 70 cents, you know, or 70% rather. The same thing with a lot of the other mandates. You know, regional school districts receive money for many other different things, and they've taken that away from us. So I think that it really does behoove us to look at it, you know, from a financial aspect. And then Selectman Noble also had a thing. What about the quality of life for the Charlton students? I know what my children used to spend on the bus driving over to Shepherd Hill. That was a good 45 minutes to an hour every day.
There are still students today who are on the bus for up to an hour each way.
So, you know, and I'm not denigrating anything that happens over there, but, you know, I think it, you know, every once in a while you do have to do an analysis of, you know, what do we gain from regionalization, what we don't have, for what we miss out because we're regionalized, you know, with the quality of life for the students and financially, and what would it cost us to build a high school?
Mr. Swenson.
I support this. I really think this is a good idea, for some of the reasons Mr. McGrath said and some others. I've been in town almost 30 years, and for 30 years I've been hearing that we should have our own high school and we should do this. And there have been people that have made very good and very passionate arguments on both sides. But one thing we haven't had is facts to support it or to put it down. I mean, in my mind, having gone through a lot of these discussions, I can't imagine that it would be financially viable to do it. But again, I'm just, you know, things rattling around in my brain saying that. I don't have anything to back that up with. I think historically it's worked out well the way that it is. I mean, Shepherd Hill has been a great school. I think there are great quality educators up there, and it's been a good thing. I think once the state implemented the wealth formula, which determines what our contribution and what Dudley's contribution is, I think that was the big thing that threw this out of whack. As Mr. Singer said, it's costing us much more per student. Our contribution is much higher per student than the Dudley contribution is, and it's only getting more so as the state works not only to advance the wealth volume, but also to minimize the state's involvement in public education and minimize their contributions overall. So if nothing else, to put a rest to the argument, is it viable, is it not viable? It'd be nice to be able to cite some facts. So time is as good as any, I think, to look at getting some facts.
Ms. Noble?
I have a question for Mr. Singer. Will you be taking the lead on this school building committee? And if so, what methodology will you be using to gather the data and disseminate it?
So as far as the lead, I am happy to be a member of the committee. I'm also happy to allow others to do it if they so choose. As far as the structure of the committee, I think you should have people from this board on it residents at large. The only, I have not done an undertaking such as this before. The one caution I would put out there regarding the committee is I would caution against having members on that committee who are either current members of the current school committee or employed by the school system due to potential conflicts of interest. They could certainly be interviewed as part of the process. They can provide documentation, but there's no question if Charlton was to actually move in that direction and deregionalize, any current elected school committee members would lose their seats. There's an issue. They would have to run for re-election to be a new school committee. Potentially, it would affect faculty and staff, superintendents, principals, et cetera. It's going to affect their livelihood. So I think there is the danger, and also certainly the potential appearance of conflict of interest if they were on a committee where they might have to recommend a course of action that could see them lose their own seats or cut their own pay.
Well, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves when we get to that point.
Yeah, I'd like to offer a statement to the chair, or a suggestion.
Just a caution.
I think first and foremost, it's a financial thing, where we have to generate some data. I don't think it has to be a full-fledged committee. I think that what we need to find is we need to get the financial data of what do we receive now? What's it cost us, for being in the regional school system, and then have an analysis. However, and I have no clue how this is done. What would it cost us? Ballpark figures, to be on our own.
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble?
If I were to begin this, to look at the cost, I would start with what it currently costs us, where the funds come from, and work backward from that.
Ms. Kraber?
Yes, sir. If you remember, we are in the process of completing a study with Mark Abrams. And he is doing a lot of the legwork that you're talking about right now. So I have seen his draft report. I am going to be meeting the end of this month with the superintendent, with Greg Desto, with the manager in Dudley, Greg Bacalonis, and Mark, and we'll be going through what his finding is to make sure all the numbers and everything is correct. And then the plan was, as according to what you directed us to do at the end of the budget season last year, is to sit down, present that to the Board of Selectmen's Finance Committee, basically whoever has generally been in that the kickoff meeting, show those findings, and then you can decide where you wanted to go next. And I think that you had directed us to do that with the intention of taking a look at whether or not we needed an override. What Mr. Singer is talking about would be fairly easy to just have extend Mark's contract a bit to also now do a computation of what it would cost for us to actually pull out of there and per student, and we can make some assumptions on what it would cost to build a high school or whatever. So you have a lot of the data already done.
Mr. Singer?
Well, and part of that was, people talk about an override. To figure out what the cost of an override would be, how much per home, if they stayed, for what they're looking for and what they were asking for, what would the cost be to each home or taxpayer in the town of Charlton if they had an override for that? And then also research costs to build a school. We've built schools in the past, I'm sure it doesn't really equal today, costs have gone up, but there must be information out there where we can get a rough estimate what it would cost to go through design, planning, construction of school, and then look at the numbers to compare what would that override cost, and we'd have the two different numbers as well. There's a lot of information to be gathered, and I would love to have Ms. Noble be on that.
Me and my big mouth.
There you go.
Well, through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
Maybe a suggestion, let's just see where the data drives us, brings us after we see Mr. Abrams' report, but also, will we need a motion to expand his contract a little bit, Rob?
If you give me that direction, I can take care of that for you. If you'd like to make a motion, you could do that also.
Okay, so through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I'd like to make a motion to expand Mr. Mark Abrams' contract to look at the viability, or the, I guess, the cost, Robin? How would you?
Expand it to review do a cost-benefit analysis of the town going independent.
Okay. So I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Under the direction of the town administrator?
Correct.
And I'll second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Clarification, please, could you tell us who Mark Abrams is?
Ms. Graber?
Yes, he is Better Government Consulting. He is actually the consultant that quite often teaches the school business managers. He probably knows more about school funding than many of us.
But he's private firm, he's not.
He's a consultant,
I'm sorry, yeah.
private consultant.
Mr. Swenson?
My only concern on the motion is if we could get an idea of cost, as to what it's going to cost us to extend this contract.
Do you want me to do that before, or just make sure I have the funding
I'd
to
be
do
more
it?
comfortable voting if I knew the dollar value of what I was voting on. I'm not opposed to doing it, I'd just like to know what it's going to cost.
Ms. Graber, is that something you can check in with us before you?
So do you want me to wait until your next meeting to come back to authorize that, or I'm just
offering my own opinion.
I can tell you
There's a motion on the
his
floor.
original, just maybe to put it in perspective, his original cost for doing the analysis for the town of Charlton, working with the school and also working with Dudley to make sure he's got all the numbers, was $3,000, $3,500.
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble?
Our next meeting isn't until September 12th, and I'd rather get the ball rolling on this prior to that happening. I understand that we want to keep our costs low and be mindful of the dollars and cents, but I'd still like to see this get moving before our next meeting.
I think based upon what we're paying in total with Dudley, that a slight extension would be minimal.
I have faith that the town administrator will make a wise decision if it's, a large amount of money, that she will not pursue it.
She come
I
back
am
to
a
us.
little conservative.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
All right, chair votes aye, motion passes with 4 ayes and one no. We'll now move on to item number 5 under new business. That's the town administrator's performance review, and I'll give a brief update. I know, Ms. Noble, this is your first evaluation. So every year we try to evaluate from our board's perspective, Ms. Graber, and the work that she did over the past year. I know, if you remember from our goals and objectives meeting, that one thing that we were considering doing is to update how we evaluate the town administrator, and also to expand that evaluation to other departments. For now, as the human resource director is still, being acclimated and getting different systems up and running, we would go back to the way we were doing it for the past couple of years, where we'd each be able to sit down with the town administrator, talk to her about her accomplishments. Ms. Graber will talk about some of those very momentarily, but we'll be able to talk to her, compare what we have seen over this past year, and do an evaluation. As you see in the packet, there is a form. It's also a suggestion, is also what the board wants to do, but that's what we've done in the past, and it seemed to have worked out pretty well. But Ms. Graber, if you want to start us off, I know you wanted to address the board.
Yes. So part of that performance evaluation is also a self-assessment. So what I'd like to do is to provide you with my self-assessment.
Take it away.
So I'd like to begin by thanking the board for providing me the opportunity to continue to serve the residents of Charlton as its town administrator. The staff has continued to excel in their area, and it is a pleasure working with them. This cannot be overstated, that no projects or objectives could have been achieved without the assistance and support of staff, boards, and committees. I am honored to have been a part of the process to keep all town business moving forward. I believe my skills and experience continues to be a good match for the town. Close attention to details, close attention to goals and objectives the board has requested of me has been my priority. I work diligently to be responsive to your requests for information in a timely manner. Attached are the board's goals and objectives from 2017, from which you developed with Jeff Nutting in a workshop retreat. The budget season was fairly non-eventful. The Finance Committee review, and I should say the budget season as far as the general fund budget being put together, was not eventful, as the Finance Committee reviewed the budget request to create a balanced budget in FY18. I trust I provided the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee with sound financial recommendations. Funded projects have been followed through to completion or are processing in a reasonable manner. We've made significant progress in moving Charlton forward. In FY16, Charlton installed a new elevator in the town hall. We completed an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Southbridge for 500,000 gallons of water and negotiated a $30 million settlement with ExxonMobil, which includes A, water infrastructure to the Charlton Middle School, Heritage Elementary School, and Bay Path and Masonic Home, and B, to pay all of Charlton's water debt, allowing the water betterments to be abated. We've also maintained critical funding for Route 20 reconstruction and worked with Mass DOT to fix a dangerous curve, while Route 20 is slated to be constructed in FY19. The progress we've made in the previous years has also required significant time and effort in FY17. This past year, we continued to work with the town of Southbridge and Exxon to further this massive project. I have been and will continue into the next year to develop a program to reimburse residents for water betterments. This year, the Water Sewer Commission, based on material that I provided, rescinded the betterment for the water debt. I also initiated a Mass Works grant in conjunction with the town of Oxford to install water infrastructure in Route 20 before reconstruction begins. To that end, I met with Secretary Jay Ash along with Representative Paul Frost, as well as coordinated a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor to visit Charlton. New projects begun and or completed in FY17 include negotiated a water line with Mass DOT with the town of Southbridge and Casella, resulting in a $10 million project that will bring potable water to residents whose water has been contaminated by the bordering Southbridge landfill. Also, regarding the landfill, I've been working with the Board of Health and zoning officer regarding a resident's complaint that the landfill is operating in the town of Charlton in violation of zoning. We sought an interim zoning officer who made an affirmative decision, which was upheld by the ZBA. Casella has appealed, and I am now managing that case. Reorganization of the administrative structure. We've done that by combining the treasurer-collector positions, changing the town accountant to a finance director, and adding a human resource director. We welcome those new staff to the town. We also aggregate, and this is probably a Freudian slip when I say aggravated. It's aggregated electricity, but we did aggravate a few people because they got the bill notice before they had heard it from us. So electricity for a low 3-year rate for Charlton residents and businesses. I'm not sure if you followed in the news, but I know our Attorney General has really been fighting National Grid on them wanting to increase rates over 20%. So this is a very good thing for the town, and we have some protection in case they do get those increases or a portion of those increases. These are just a few highlights of the progress we made over the past year, and I am confident that we will have another amazing year ahead. I have also enjoyed participating in community events. I know my first responsibility is the administration of the town, but I believe it is important for a town administrator to be visible and accessible to the residents of the community. A good balance has been achieved. I hope you found my work satisfactory, and I look forward to the coming year and developing new goals with the board. Again, I respectfully thank you for the opportunity to serve the town of Charlton as its town administrator. Please find below a list of projects that were achieved this year. Some I completed myself, some as part of a group. All took attention and effort. Also, as required by the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator Evaluation Policy, please find attached the policy and performance review form. Would you like me to go through the accomplishments? I did do the highlighting.
I think that'll be good for reference as well.
Thank you.
You have too many accomplishments.
Thank you. For your review, I did break them down into the categories. So some of them are repeated, and some of them may show up in other categories.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'll open up discussion to the board from what we laid out, about evaluations about, Mrs. Singer?
Two thoughts I had coming into this that I would like to change for this year. And one Ms. Craver just alluded to, which is a self-assessment. This is not a self-assessment. This is a list of what's happened this year. I was actually going to ask for a self-assessment, and that is that the town administrator actually fill out the exact same form that we fill out and actually score herself. And then I'd like to hear from the town administrator, as part of her self-assessment, why she scores herself that way. What I found in a lot of reviews that are done, I always go to the private sector, outside. But usually, either the manager will do the evaluation of the employee, sit down with the employee, go over that with them, and have them sign off on it. In some instances, they will have the employee also do their own self-evaluation, and then they go over their own evaluation and the self-evaluation with the employee and have them sign off on it. While I appreciate Ms. Craver's wonderful list of what's happened in town this year, I'd like to see us move in that direction as well and have the town administrator do a self-evaluation where she scores herself as we do as part of the process. Also, as far as the sit-down meetings go, I don't think that's necessary any longer. I don't think I really thought it was necessary as individuals. We've all worked with Ms. Craver for a long time, and those selectmen who are new, select persons who are new, have also had, I think, enough exposure and experience with Ms. Craver to be able to conduct the professional review and then produce our reviews. I just think it's a better way to do the review that way. So my two requests would be to have us simply do our evaluations and then present them, and have the town administrator also do her own self-evaluation to present at the same time.
Thank you. One thing I want to, your second request, to not have a sit-down meeting, it doesn't have to be a sit-down, it could be a voice meeting. I think it's fair to all members and to the town administrator to be able to talk to you, to have a discussion about each of the items. And I felt like that's a very important part of that, where you can have a frank discussion, one-on-one, be able to ask each other questions and make comments.
I would say I think that's important when you're going over the actual review results. If selectmen have questions that need answers, certainly contact the town administrator. But I found, for me personally, that past processes where we've done this opens the door for people to give an evaluation or a score, only to have that point argued as to why it shouldn't be that score, and then have the score changed or be persuaded. This is a board of professionals who can do a professional review. I know when I get my performance reviews, anytime I've ever done them, I didn't sit down with someone and say, this is what I'm going to give you, do you think I should? Or why should I not give you this? I do my review, or I've gotten my performance review, and then management went over your review with you, why you got that score. I think that's a fair and professional manner to do it, and unbiased.
Mr. McGrath?
So I agree with David on the self-assessment. I think that's a good idea. Using the same form that we use. I know that the town administrator has a lot of accomplishments and things in her list, but I think that also to give herself a score on a self-assessment would be a good thing. But I will disagree on the fact that I think that the face-to-face, one-on-one sit-down with the town administrator is a good thing to do. I know we've had frank discussions on some items before, and it didn't cause me to change my score in any way, shape, or form. And it wasn't a bad score. It was just we talked about how I came about that score and why, and to Robin's credit, it's always, what can I do better than? What do you see that I can do better?
And to add to that, that would be a good venue, a good forum to talk to each other about her self-evaluation as well, being able to compare it and have a more frank discussion. Mr. Swenson?
I guess my approach is just a little bit different. When I sit down and talk to the town administrator, I do it before I score. Because my approach has always been more to take the categories and ask her impression of how it's doing and address any concerns or questions that I might have, get answers for that, and then take the results of that discussion and then make my score from there. As opposed to saying, here's my score, what do you think? Just a different approach.
Ms. Graber?
Yes. I actually would like to advocate for the meetings. I think for both of us, I think there should be no surprises. So my preference is to have an opportunity to have a discussion. One of the things I found in some of the one-on-one discussions has been that there might have been some misinformation or some of the, you say questions, when I had an opportunity to talk to them, to the selectmen, they've had an impression of something, and then I was able to get some backup documentation that reminded them of, where something happened from or what it stemmed from. So that's always been helpful, to be able to provide additional information to. And I will say the self-assessment, I understand how that works in a private setting. I'm not sure, I'd have to think about it, but I'm not sure how that works in a public setting, that I'm going to be self-assessing myself here in a public forum. So I think that that's a little different. So I think that I do a really good job, and I probably would be putting, for the most part, 5s, because if there's any area that I think that I need to improve on, I try to make sure I make those improvements, except for being able to say last names. But other than that, it feels awkward to me, my first hearing of it, so I'm just letting you know that.
Mr. Singer?
I think the awkward part is simply because it is awkward. And if you've never done it before, it's going to seem awkward. And after the 10th time you've done it, it's still awkward to have to score yourself. But and I'll use Mr. McGrath's word, it's an exercise. But I think it's a very valuable exercise that forces you to actually have to stop and think and actually look back at yourself and say, would I give myself that 5? Would I give myself that 4? It really makes you think when you have to evaluate yourself in that manner.
Mr. McGrath?
And I just want to second what David said. If you feel that you've done, the work of a 5, which is excellent, which, we've given you 5s before in many of the categories, that's what you put down, because that's how you think you've worked. That's fine.
But it makes you reflect.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Mr. Swenson?
One last thing, which is just a word of caution, because I've seen other boards get caught up in this, and number 7, completion of the Board of Selectmen's goals and objectives. I think as we evaluate that, we have to make sure that we're not holding her accountable for things that we haven't accomplished.
Right.
Do you want to remove number 7?
No, I think it's fine to be there, because there are times that there are things that we ask the town administrator to do to facilitate us meeting a goal or an objective. So I think we have to look at it more from that perspective. And it was a goal or objective not attained because of shortcomings from the town administrator or shortcomings from us as a board.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I would probably say we would get a 2 or a 3 sometimes.
A generous day, probably, yeah.
Also, just while we're talking about the form, I know last year we had a different form. I'm not sure if we would want to use that one. Yeah, it was slightly different, where we were able to actually make comments under each category and then do a final
I think we did
summary.
have comments on the form last time.
Yeah, I know, I think I redesigned it just for last year, just for additional clarity.
This was the last one I had, then if you did redesign
Yeah.
and gave it to Mary, she would have it, I didn't have it.
Okay. Yep.
This is the last one.
Yes, Ms. Noble?
Just one more thing. I know this is my first time doing
Yep.
this, but I just wanted to say that, I work in the public sector. I have worked in the public sector before. I've never had to do a self-evaluation like this. If I had to do one for myself, I would have felt very uncomfortable about it as well. Because again, I think I do exemplary work at my job. That being said, this can also, I think, be used as a tool for an employee to say, well, I gave myself a 4 or I gave myself a 3. However, if I had these tools made available to me, or if I had a better relationship with this particular entity, I would have achieved a 5. So it's also an opportunity for the individual to say what they need to bring them up to their goals. And that's how I would look at it if
I would
I
also
had to do it.
add that during the one-on-ones, that a lot of this, what we're trying to accomplish from the self-evaluations, comes out during these meetings, where the town administrator advocates pretty much for 5s on each of them, and explains why, why she feels that way for each of those categories. Mr. Singer?
I may be that odd duck then, because when I've done this, I've actually given myself lower scores than my boss gave me. And I think I'm fantastic at what I do. But I still gave myself lower scores, and my boss was like, no, because, I found that it was awkward, it was uncomfortable, but it really made you think, like, what could I have done better? And even if I think I'm great, you know what? I'm not that great, I'm not replaceable. What could I have done better, and how could I improve? And I think it's a great exercise. I mean, you made a point about how we've done things in the past. This all came to me when I went over the agenda, and it's simply, I look at things from the point of view, just because we've done something the same way for a long time, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking at our processes of ways to improve it and make these processes better as we go. I thought this was a good thing to add.
Do you think then perhaps a middle ground then would be for the town administrator to fill out one of these self-evaluations and bring that to the one-on-one meeting to compare to what, you want to bring to that meeting?
I guess it would be the exact same evaluation form we all would get.
Yeah. Mr.
Yeah,
Swenson?
If she wants, she can email it to us in advance, so we can have it before we meet with her, and we can go over it with her.
I think we either do it or we don't do it. What I mean by that is our evaluations are public record.
Right.
I think if we require that the town administrator do that, that should be part of the record. If we're not willing to do that, then we just shouldn't have her do it in the first place.
I'm fine with that. I think it's a good exercise that, and I think it'd be good, not just for the town administrator, but that's a start, but to see this become part of a process of improvement of processes throughout the town.
And that that's a good segue for our goals and objectives for later on, so keep that, on top, on the back of your mind. So, does anyone want to bring?
I would make a motion, I'll remove the meeting parts and moving number 7, but I would make a motion then just to request the town administrator to also do the self-evaluation of the same numerical form that we provide.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Swenson?
It's pencil.
Just thinking.
I saw a hand
Thinking.
twitch.
No, just thinking.
All right. Seeing no discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion. One discussion I do want to say is I'll also work with Mary to send out the updated ones from last year. It's basically the same category. It's just structured a little differently, a little cleaner, and ability to detail more notes. So seeing no further discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. And then we can work with Mary to schedule meetings, times. I know she has access to the town administrator's schedule, and we'll work from there. And we'll try to get that done as soon as we can. And now we'll move on to old business. Item number 1 on old business is the Mass DOT Route 20 discussion. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. At the board's last meeting, on the 25th, Mr. Singer asked if we could add an agenda item and invite Mass DOT to have a conversation with us about 2 sections of Route 20 by Ted's and over by Treehouse. We've contacted Barry Lorian at Mass DOT. He stated that they are aware of the traffic by Treehouse and have spoken with them to work on a better business model for traffic. As far as Route 169 and Route 20, he talked to the traffic engineer who designed them. They were solving one problem, but ended up creating another one. The traffic engineer is looking into modifying the pavement markers to move the yield signs. He has advised they are working on this and that the Charlton Police are very involved. Sergeant Dowd is here tonight to answer any of your questions, and also Selectman McGrath has also had a conversation with them, and I would defer to him.
Thank you, Ms. Greer. Thank you, Sergeant Dowd. I'll hand it over to Mr. McGrath.
So on the Treehouse issue, when Treehouse first opened, I'll say the first week, there were a number of glitches over there. One of the items was that they were stopping the traffic, the patrons as they first came in the driveway, and they're putting wristbands on them and giving them a number, and that caused the traffic to back up in both directions on Route 20. So, the DOT went over there and told them that that was unacceptable, and they have to come up with a better plan. So now I believe they do it further on in, and there has been no stacked up traffic waiting to get in line. So that sort of eased up a few of the concerns there. They're still looking at a couple of other things, maybe some more signage out there. And I'm not sure, Dan, do they have a no left-hand turn when they come?
They have a small sign, they have some arrows pointing, they can only take a right-hand turn when they leave the facility.
Because part of what's happening there is they come out, they go into the high-speed lane eastbound, and then they make a U-turn either at Vinnie Iannuli's property, Amrec, or they go into Zorba's, and they make a U-turn there and come back out onto the highway. I don't know what can be done with that, unless they put which might be one of their plans with the signage, no U-turns or no left-hand turn, till further down.
They may have to put a light in there. This is, now I say sadly, I drive by there every day, sometimes multiple times a day for work. Both sections by Ted's and also by Treehouse. The Treehouse, they're both a disaster. I've sat in mile backups at Ted's, and it's not that people don't understand the signs. They get it. They can read the signs. It's just the design is a disaster. It's a mile down the road, and you wait forever. You turn around, you go back and go down through Southbridge to get home. Treehouse, I can tell you, if they're doing U-turns, if they're doing, and I've seen it, and I've almost been, just in the last month, almost 4 accidents myself in front of Treehouse. One could have had me killed. People are pulling out. Regardless of any sign, they're trying to make that left. And across, they're going into 3 lanes of traffic, because you got 2 this way plus the 1 that way at a minimum. The last one where I thought I was gonna actually get killed, the guy couldn't make a left. He didn't turn to the road to make a U-turn. He just pulled out, took a quick right in the far right lane so he could get out, and then just swung a U-turn in the middle of the highway, right in front of me.
Yeah.
And I've been watching that kind of activity almost every day when I go past there. With people trying to make those turns, making left, U-turns in the middle of the highway, and there's going to be a fatality there. It's going to be the Route 20 down here, up here all over again. If I don't think they're taking it seriously enough. Someone's going to get killed up there.
They're taking it seriously enough, but they have to look at it. They have to analyze everything that's going on there. And I'm not speaking for them. I'm just saying that a traffic light there is not going to happen for a long time.
Or maybe police presence, Jersey barriers, because they got to stop them from doing those U-turns in the middle of the highway. It's just, it's some people are going to get killed.
Ms. Noble?
I can tell you from personal experience, I've watched cars pull out, look at the sign that says no left turn, and make a left turn anyways. It had no effect on the driver whatsoever. And as for the traffic going up towards Ted's, I've lived on J. Davis Road for many, many years now. Every Friday, without fails, particularly in the summertime, that traffic will back up for a mile, 2 miles. It always backs up. And so I don't know that it has anything to do with the new traffic patterns on the road. There's always a line of traffic when you have to merge from 2 lanes down to 1 lane and then back to 2 lanes again. That traffic backs up without fail. It doesn't matter what lines are on the road.
Right,
Mr.
it
Swenson?
does back up. I've seen it, though. It's not just Fridays. It's the middle of the week. It's the middle of the day, and I'm hitting it. And I've talked to, I won't give names, I've talked to business owners in that area, and they say they're seeing it. This is not, it's always been. This is an increase.
Okay.
Mr. Swenson?
Dan, a couple of things, if I could. One thing that no one's mentioned yet, that was one of my first concerns, is people traveling westbound, being in the left-hand lane on Route 20, wanting to turn left into Treehouse.
That is an issue. People are able to do that.
Has there been any incidents as a result of that, or?
There's been some minor accidents, but there's been
Okay.
obviously no fatalities.
Okay.
I mean, but by the grace of God.
Yeah, and I guess my bigger question to you would be, you work this town constantly, you know it better than anyone. What are your thoughts as to viable options?
Myself
Nothing
and
like
Chief
putting them on the
Charette.
spot.
No, I'm just ideas, I'm just asking.
No,
for
myself and
thoughts.
Chief Charette went up there and spoke to both the owners of Treehouse and several state officials regarding the roads. And to their credit, every suggestion we have made, they've adhered to. And it is a lot smoother, as Mr. McGrath pointed out, what they were initially doing, they had to tweak it. My understanding, talking to them, is their business philosophy is changing as they're able to produce more, and they don't expect the crowds that they're currently getting to extend much longer. But currently, they are having quite a few visitors to their facility.
Okay.
Question for,
Mr. Singer? Oh, do you have more questions?
No, I just wondered if you had any,
But-
I'm just curious your
Not to
thoughts
disagree
on.
with Mrs. Singer, but certainly I would agree with Mrs. Noble. There's a lot of, the traffic is not their fault. A lot of the traffic is coming off 84. We're seeing it on Thursday nights, where we used to just see it on Friday nights. It's the weekend traffic.
the Mass Pike B issue.
There's more traffic because of Treehouse, but they're certainly not responsible for all the traffic on Route 20.
Right, but I would say that the cars coming out of the Treehouse lot have nothing to do with the Mass Pike. So the two questions I had, one is legal, I guess the question. Just right off the bat, making a left turn across double yellows and multiple lanes of traffic, isn't that a moving violation?
No.
No?
And I tell you why, because their site plan.
Could you
they've
speak
been
right into
kind
the
of- Excuse me,
mic?
they've been kind enough to put arrows suggesting a right-hand turn, but that's not enforceable on our end.
Then the question, a follow-up is, if there's an accident, insurance fines the person who crossed the double yellow and multiple lanes of oncoming traffic.
Well, there's certainly laws of the road where they might not have given the operator traveling west enough of an opportunity to, they didn't safely, they didn't pull out safely and thus caused an accident, but it's not illegal for them to take a left-hand turn.
Okay, so then the other question is, as Mr. McGrath pointed out, there's no light going in there anytime soon. And as Ms. Noble pointed out, they don't care what the signs say. And
I think the signs have curbed a lot of the traffic, but there are
Curbed a
people
lot,
that don't
right,
care. You're
right.
absolutely right.
But
it's curbed a lot.
Right.
What we're trying to do is get most of these people to, and they're making announcements there as we requested to say, hey, please leave, exit to the right when you leave the facility. But there are people that are anxious, that they want to go in the other direction, and they're pulling into businesses which they're legally allowed to do, but probably not safely.
Right, or just shooting out across the lanes or doing the middle of the road U-E's. And I go back to that because 4 times in the past, however, I'm trying to make sure, I don't want to have that accident, but it's constantly in my face. When I go down there, someone's doing it. Would a temporary solution be, could they just consider maybe putting just some Jersey barriers on the yellow lines in front of that driveway, so I can't turn left, then they're forced to turn right and go make a U-turn down the road. But because if you have some Jersey barriers there, at least, you know what, they can drop them in and they can't turn left.
Mr. McGrath?
Just a couple of things with Jersey barriers like that is you end up with the liability of having an open-ended Jersey barrier, even if you have.
With the lights and everything?
Yeah, even if you have a attenuator at the end of them, somebody's gonna get you that it doesn't meet AASHTO, the federal regulations, because you can't, and then you're also limiting left-hand turns into Zorbas and any of the, they get hurt. The thing, I think, and the reason they're looking at the traffic markings up at Ted's, when they made the gore, which is as you're coming eastbound and it goes down to one lane, what we call a gore, which is all the yellow lines that say you can't travel in there, in that area, and it goes down to the one lane. That was never really pronounced as it is now, and people used to come up on the right-hand lane. They used to form a second lane there where they can't, where they shouldn't be, and to sneak down 169. So in other words, all the locals knew that it was squeezing you left so you could go up to Route 20, but the right-hand lane, you could squeeze by and get down to 169. Well, now that's more pronounced now. You have a lot of people from out of state are just, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and nobody can go down to 169 and take the right-hand turn. They had looked at widening that intersection, but we have a cemetery there, and you can't, there's nothing you can do with the cemetery, you know, that would be the correction for that area there. They are looking at the markings, to see what they can do to alleviate some of it. Some of the changes that you see at 169 to the east, where they have one lane, when you came out of 169 to go on to 20 east, the Yields area was actually in the live travel lane, and there were numerous accidents there because of that. So now what they've done is they've moved that Yield area back, they've moved the travel lane closer over to the right-hand side, so traffic's backing up there also. But they are looking at it. They're trying to figure out what they can do to straighten it out. You have on the westbound side of that, you have the cemetery, which constricts them. To the east of that, you have the bridge, and then you run into the businesses. So it's a very, very tough area with a lot of activity going on, and they have, the gentleman that's looking at it is very, very good, and he's very qualified. So
hopefully they'll get something, because down by Treehouse, they may have to do a solution more like down the end of Route 20. I can just envision just what I see every day. We're gonna start to see fatalities on that stretch of road.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
You had mentioned that there'd been some accidents, though none fatal. Can you tell me a little bit about the nature of the accidents and approximately how many have there been? I'm sure there's less as time has gone on, but.
I know of one specifically. I couldn't probably address the others, and I don't have a great basis of knowledge about it.
Okay.
I came upon it after it was clearing, but it seemed like it involved somebody leaving and doing what we just talked about, making a turn.
Okay.
But it happened further down from the facility, so they weren't right in front of the Treehouse Road. They were a little further down by some of the other properties.
Going east or west?
Yeah, excuse me, heading east.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I would just caution everybody about right now is it's getting darker now. It used to, a few months ago, it was still light out at 8 o'clock. It's getting dark. It's going to be a little harder directing traffic there as it gets darker in the fall and winter, if they keep the same type of hours. It's a little easier when you see a car coming when you pull out. You're trying to do one of these crazy maneuvers versus not seeing it at all. So that's all.
Hard to see a detail officer in the dark there, too.
that's not a place for a detail. Through Chair.
Mr. McGrath?
Dan, are we out in the middle of 20 doing details there?
On occasion during the earlier hours when they first open up, because of that, the westbound traffic is able to pull in there. So an officer a lot of times will get out just to get those cars in, to get in the parking lot, which only takes usually probably about 10, 15 minutes, because that's the mad rush. And then as the cars pull in, they do have quite a parking attendant set up there. They've got 4 or 5 people working, so the officer really doesn't have to handle the parking in the parking lot itself. They've got plenty of employees doing that, and they have been open to some suggestions as far as using the lower lot or the upper lot, depending upon the traffic flow, so that cars aren't getting backed up on Route 20.
Just, through the Chair, just a suggestion to, if you could forward it to the chief. If we think we're gonna be out there, especially during the upcoming winter months or the fall, as it gets darker, a portable light plant, if we have to. Let's light the intersection up, put some light on it.
Yes, sir.
That's a good idea.
Any other questions or comments?
Thanks for coming and answering.
Sergeant Dab, thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
very
in. Right, we'll now move on to item number 2 under old business, that is licenses and permits issued by the Board of Selectmen. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. At the board's last meeting, questions arose about what the board could actually permit by law. Attached is a listing of permits issued by the Board of Selectmen, along with the list of general license fees. Staff is reviewing the laws for each permit, and we are working on putting a new format together for license applications to be more clear to the applicant. So this is a process, and we will be coming back. But I wanted to get these to you.
Thank you. And this is very helpful. I know there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of unanswered questions. And then obviously this is not the last time this will come up as we do more research and as we
Keep
refine
working
our
on it.
process.
Is this all online?
Yes, sir. This should be online under the Board of Selectmen's licenses. I'll double check.
And the chapter and the subsections explain and define each of those common municipal licenses, correct?
Yes.
Such as coffee and tea house, or entertainment, or dancing schools.
Right. So the first one is the Board of Selectmen's Policy Number 22, titled Licenses. That was accepted November 26, 2002, and then amended in 2015. So that is your policy, and those are your general license fees. Those are online within the bylaw. The Board of Selectmen's policies. The next is the common municipal licenses and permits issued by selectmen. And we've started to do some research, and I can tell you some of these chapter and sections, it refers you back, it says you can do this except for this, so then we're going back and checking 2 other sections to see how that applies. So we're doing some detailing for you.
So eventually we'll have a more comprehensive definition of what it means to do a picnic grove license.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for everyone working on that. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 3 then of old business. That's the Marijuana Advisory Group. Ms. Kraber?
Yes, sir. At the board's April 11, 2017 meeting, you approved signing the letter of non-opposition with stipulation that Healthwise will work with the appropriate town officials on age-appropriate materials that will be developed and distributed through the schools. We have put together a meeting with the superintendent of schools for the end of the month. Mr. McMahon also contacted me and told me they were ready to set up the advisory task force. They did an asbestos abatement of the building. The parking area is fine, and now they need to set up a meeting with the advisory committee before any work is done. The advisory committee shall consist of Healthwise officials and officials of the town, including the Board of Health Director, Chief of Police, Fire Chief, 1 Board of Selectmen member or their designee, and 1 citizen. We have advertised the opening for a citizen on cable and the town's website, and we'll bring back those that are interested. The advisory task force shall convene as necessary, as well as timely, whenever the selectman or the town administrator so requests, in order to provide ongoing consultation and advice to Healthwise. So tonight, what I'm asking you is to consider who would be your representative, and I would like to convene a meeting, and once we get the citizen, we can start, putting that person on also. But I'd like to move forward.
Ms. Kraber, do we actually need to vote to form the committee, or is it already formed?
You've formed it according to your agreement with Healthwise.
So what are the board's wishes then for the Board of Selectmen member representative?
Through the chair,
Ms. Noble?
I'd like to put my name forward as being on the advisory committee.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Nope. Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. One thing I would ask, though, is if we consider appointing a designee as well, if Ms. Noble cannot make it, or also just have other, you
An
cannot make it.
alternate?
Alternate, yes.
Thank you.
If somebody wants to nominate me, I'll do it as
Mr.
an
Chair.
alternate.
I nominate Mr. McGrath as our Plan B.
Thank you.
Second it.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. And any other comments or questions for that? So if we're all set, we'll move on to item number 4, FY18 Board of Selectmen goals and objectives. Ms. Graber?
Attached is the complied list of Board of Selectmen's FY18 goals and objectives as agreed in your goal-setting workshop. Please review and approve or provide additional direction. And you have a hard copy of that for your convenience. Because sometimes they go sideways.
David?
David?
You got a copy in here?
Yes, sir.
That's convenient. Oh, yeah, I know, man. There we go. Hey, John? It's still the same. I might have one request, an add.
Mr. Kraber, would you want to go through the list? Well, I'll go through the list. So it was a good meeting. Ms. Noble, Mr. McGrath, myself were there. Always good to discuss, all sorts of things, different things that pop up, things that we would like to see. And we'll see going through this list. So item number 1, employee morale. We held a luncheon last year. That was pretty successful. We, we each of us pitched in for food and beverages and whatnot, and we were able to have a great little event, a little dinner, able to speak and feed everyone for a bit. So I would imagine that if the board would like to, do it again this year. Would you like to also set dates for these? Yeah, so we were thinking sometime in September, sometime next month.
So the dates in September, if you did it on a Tuesday when it was a long day, which was kind of a nice break, so you have the 5th, the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th.
I'd recommend, Mr. Swanson?
No, I'm just thinking over my own
Oh,
calendar.
okay.
don't have
I would
my calendar with
recommend
me.
the 12th or the 26th.
Which is your regular meeting?
Yes.
I'd opt for the 12th, because I don't think I'd be here on the 26th, and I would like to attend.
Yeah, the 12th works for me too.
Let's say maybe around 5 o'clock. That's a reasonable dinner time. It might be a little late, but I'll get there.
And would you like to do pizza the same thing you did before, or something different?
It seemed like
Treehouse involved.
Get you.
Happy crowd.
Happy hour.
I think pizza worked last time. We also had chips, soda. I think it worked. And also, I would encourage. Last time I made a cheesecake. So if you want to bring some sort of a treat or other delight, please feel free.
Yeah. Okay.
And also make sure it obviously is an open invitation to all employees, not just employees of the town hall.
Yes. 5 o'clock.
Great. And then we'll each we'll find out how much we owe, and then we'll obviously pitch in.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, number 2, enhance meeting efficiencies, send draft agendas and packets to boards on Thursdays before meetings. And we also would acknowledge that, yes, things do change. We've been holding off until right before meetings to actually send out this information. And also, please, if Ms. Noble or Mr. McGrath, if you're in comments or, anything, please, jump in. It is something we've already been, changing, getting it out the week before, the Thursday before, and then obviously, the caveat, it might and probably will change a little bit.
Well, for one, through the chair,
Yes.
I was very grateful to get the packet on Thursday
Hmm.
and have a couple of days to read it. It is over 100 pages long, so it was nice to have it on a Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no comments there, completed? We did one. Good job, everyone. Number 3, the enhanced volunteerism, present ideas to the board. Ms. Noble and myself would convene and talk about some ideas and we bring to the board. I know it's always been said every year, almost all the time, every month, almost every meeting, is that, we need volunteers. We need people to fill those
Yep.
positions. We need people to help out. And there's a lot of people who can. And, we need to help encourage that. So we'll bring that to the board maybe sometime late September. Why don't we shoot for our September 26th meeting?
That sounds good.
Okay. Review license structures or schedule processes, laws, procedures, and the rest. We have started that already. So just something, something we can streamline. There's been a lot of questions. It's always good to look at that and to do an evaluation. Are our fees set correctly? Are we doing everything we need to do? Looking to our neighbors and see if we can improve our processes. So that's something that's ongoing. It's going to, obviously needs research and time. Human resources, the town administrator worked with HR director to compile a list of items that need to be considered by the board, including organizational chart and performance. It's something that was brought up a while ago about, figuring out who reports to who in specific situations. So be it a financial chain of command, be it a harassment chain of command or anything. So that's something, obviously, once the human resource director gets a little more free time to work on these projects, that she can get to it. That'll be sometime in November. Also, please, if you have any comments, questions, or if you want to add anything or change anything, please feel free to jump in. This goes to anyone. For financial stability and balanced budget. Long-term financial planning for the schools / general government. Begin discussions with appropriate parties about financial positions of the town and how to resolve it for the next 5 years. 2, adopt DOR financial policies. 3, to review financial process in relation to new finance director and treasurer collector. 4, to consider Prop 2.5. So this is a wide range. This is just throughout our process to look at how we're doing things. Obviously, budget's always been number one on our goals. You want to add anything, Mr. Swenson?
Just as part of this process, one thing that still bothers me is how low we've let the stabilization fund go. We don't seem to give that as much consideration as we have in the past and as I think we should be. So I would like to see as part of this, and I'm sorry I couldn't make the meeting, I would like to see as part of this is we set a policy, at least a policy, as to a minimum amount that we maintain in the stabilization.
Mm-hmm. So actually add it to our Board of Selectmen policies? Or just?
Whatever the most effective way of doing that is. I mean, I'm not as concerned about the process or the methodology as I am, is that we have something in place that we have some protection to protect, some protection for the stability account, because it's the lowest it's been in all the years that I've been on this board, and it's kind of an unsettling feeling.
No, absolutely. And of course, with these goals, we're going through them so we can accept them later on. Once we finish reviewing them, something, we'll officially set for the year. Does that make sense for everyone for number 6 then? Mm-hmm. And that's more of an ongoing thing with multiple boards.
Do you want to hold a special meeting? It says September special meeting to review the report with the school district and the town of Dudley. That was the meeting that I had talked about, that we've done the report.
Yeah.
So we'll get together a meeting then with everybody to review that report, and then you can decide how you go from there.
Absolutely. I think it would be a great.
The earlier, the sooner the better, right?
Okay.
If either town is going to look at any type of an override, perhaps we should have started months ago. We're already late into it, so.
Okay.
All right, so that makes sense. Any more discussion for number 6? Number 7, the new public safety complex. Article on fall town meeting to acquire land for a public safety complex. That's something you're working with, Ms. Graver?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's it for our October town meeting. And then number 8, water sewer, continue to assist the Water Sewer Commission as may be required or requested. Something, we're obviously here to help any and all boards, and since there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things happening with the Water Sewer Commission, with new water lines and Casella, and Exxon, all that fun stuff, that we're just, obviously our board and especially Ms. Craver's expertise is available. Number 9, water expansion for Oxford, to continue work on Route 20 water line. Same thing, have Ms. Craver help with that, and just, develop those opportunities that we have potentially to expand our water line with Oxford. Invite Congressman Neal to a board meeting sometime in the next 6 months. I know since my time on the board, I haven't. We've had a great representation from Senator Goby, Representative Frost, Representative Durant. I think it'd be good to touch base with our congressional representative. And Ms. Graver will take care of that sometime in February for one of our meetings then. Fay Mountain Farm, work to create farmers market and raise awareness of the Fay Mountain Farm. Work with the Fay Mountain Farm community to create a town farmers market once per week from May to October in Town Green. Ms. Noble, I know that was one of your charges.
Yep, and since we had our goals and objectives meeting, I've had one meeting with the Fay Mountain Farm Committee. It was very productive. And we started to reach out and see how we can create a very visible farmers market here in Charlton by working with other businesses. And we'll have a meeting again next week on the farm.
Perfect.
That's where we're having our meetings now.
Just to set a date, possibly something to bring to the board, September 26th, or do you think that wouldn't be necessary?
I can certainly bring an update to the board by September 26th.
Awesome. It's always good to have a concrete date. Number 12, create a new town website, invite webmaster to board meetings in September to discuss future plans and capabilities, increased website and social media presence. Obviously, we're living in 2017 now. Things are starting to become dated. There are some, there has been rising complaints about accessibility of information and dispensing of information to keep people up to date. Ms. Graver?
Mr. Chair, we've received notice from Lieutenant Governor that there is a new round of community compact
Wonderful.
monies, and one of the areas is IT. And I would be interested, or want to have a conversation with you about what we would apply for, and I would recommend that we possibly look at IT. I've started to have some conversations with our financial department about how we can improve our processes using software and other types of things. I think this also falls into that same area.
Absolutely. I
So-
know I meant back for the first round, I personally wanted to see us go after one of those, but there are so many awesome categories to go after that sadly had to be, pushed off. But I'm really happy to see that the governor and lieutenant governor are doing this again because it's such a great program that really helps our towns out.
So I'm not sure of the dates and the deadlines, but
Yeah.
if you wanted to make a motion to move forward on that one and let me try and pull that together, I can certainly send you out a draft on what we're doing and what we're planning on.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I'll make a motion that we pursue the IT portion of the community compact in this round.
Second.
Thank you. Motion second. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much for that. But also just being able to touch base with our webmaster to talk about, her capabilities, what she has to offer, and see if she has any input. I'd recommend maybe the September 12th meeting, see if we can arrange that.
September 12th? Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Number 13, Millennium begin negotiations with. I believe that's already happening.
We have begun that.
So I always recommend and appreciate attendance to our Millennium negotiation meetings, usually before our regular meetings. A lot of interesting stuff does, happen there. 14, resident support systems gather information about how to assist citizens that may be falling through the cracks. Ms. Noble, that was another personal one that you brought forward?
Yes, I did. So I am working on gathering information together to put together a handbook for individuals in the town that might need assistance.
Yep.
To make it more accessible to them, so they'll know who to reach out to.
So sometime in November, one of our November meetings then? if
I
you
would
want?
hope to have it ready by November or December.
Okay, so why don't we say the last meeting in November,
Okay.
whatever that may be calendar-wise.
That would be the 21st.
21st, sounds good. Number 15, the Dudley Charlton Regional School District, engage in conversations with the school about opportunities to expand awareness of civic engagement, especially at the local level. There's also another wonderful thing you brought forward, Ms. Noble.
But I think it's something that every member of the Board of Selectmen should be involved in.
Right. It is in general, it's always good to work on our relationship with, with the members of the Dudley Charlton School District, also the administration. That's something we have been doing. We're having joint meetings, and we'll be having another joint meeting to discuss the financial report as well. So, Mr. McGrath?
Through the chair, to the town administrator, Robin, can we find out from the superintendent what's available for us to participate in?
Yes, sir.
Is it, reading,
Yeah.
reading to the school kids, how, maybe, I don't know if they have civic classes anymore or whatever they call them.
We
How's
do.
that, Rick?
Dating yourself in that.
They do have a reading date, and the employees do go down and do that. So one, I will try and get you included in that, the board,
I'll make available.
as well as some special things that they have.
Some of the other stuff is how do we engage with them and let them know in their classroom what goes on, in the town, what opportunities there are, what we do, things like that.
Okay.
Really dazzle them with a selectman visit.
Yeah, exactly. In my jeans and t-shirt.
I would also like to see that have Bay Path included in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
They don't come under the DCRD,
And I apologize for that.
but just, I
Okay.
think it'd be.
Good catch.
Yeah, absolutely. I know they do, I think it's like 11th grade or 12th grade, they have the civics class, we learn government, so.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a perfect opportunity. I'd just like to see you to reach out to them as well.
Perfect. If you can update Ms. Craver for 26th September,
Yes.
especially with school coming online soon.
Did you?
In the auditorium, and all the students come out.
Regional dispatch, number 16, to continue to promote. I know that last meeting, we voted to approve on contingent upon 3 communities to enter in the agreements for regional dispatch. I believe that's not the case, we only have 2 communities, but I think it provides a good, foundation for future exploration, where we all came together originally to discuss, to do the research, get the data for, for the feasibility and for all the logistical parts of regional dispatch. So I imagine that's more of an ongoing thing, right?
I think so. I think you voted to approve it pending 3 communities. If there was another community, and there was some others that expressed interest, if there's another option or a community interest, we'll bring that back to you.
Thank you. Sounds good. Number 17, economic development, continue positive trend on economic development. A little vague, but I know that we've been trying to foster a better relationship with Economic Development Commission, who've been meeting quarterly. Ms. Craver has been attending their meetings. I think it's awesome steps we could continue, and definitely be on the lookout and to support, the planning board whenever we can for any special grants, for any kind of development. So that's more of an ongoing thing. I don't think there's any hard.
There's no tasks.
Yeah, no task, but it's always, always on our forefront. 18, medical marijuana facility, work to make facility an asset to the community. That was assigned to the town administrator. I believe we just acted on that to, Ms. Noble, Mr. McGrath, and Mr. Craver will work with the advisory group to make sure things are done right. And then another good one, police department, hire a new police chief. Hopefully, in the very near future, that will be the case where we have the assessment center and we'll have a new chief.
Yeah.
That's very much ongoing.
When is the assessment center?
Ms. Craver?
I'll tell you in just a moment.
While you research that, we can hop down to number 20 for public participation, find new ways to increase. I think that kind of goes along with number 3 as
So
well.
what's the difference between that and number 3?
So I think public participation is people to pay attention and be involved as a citizen, to be more, I guess, just generally aware of what's going on. Also involved with, social media presence and whatnot, just so people are engaged. Where the other one volunteers and there's people to actually be on the committees, to actually volunteer time.
The date for Police Assessment Center is August 29th.
August 29th, thank you. It's coming up. 2 weeks. Wonderful. All right, diversity, create a plan to increase diversity on the Board of Selectmen and other boards and commissions in town in order to accurately represent the demographic of Charlton. This is something the Human Resource Director is working on.
This is the goal
Yep.
that you have. We certainly
Yep.
will be working on it.
Perfect. Do you want to set a date for that? Possibly maybe late November?
When we come in we're going to be putting a whole package together
Yep.
for you, so at that time, we'll also do a report on what we're looking at there.
Perfect.
So, when are we coming forward?
I didn't think number 22 was going to be.
November 21st, so we'll keep that for the same date?
I didn't think so either.
What was that?
November
Policy
21st.
Number 22, I didn't think that was going to be on there. I thought we had tabled that.
Yeah, I've got some questions on that.
Yeah, I don't think it was,
Yeah.
it was talked about. I
Okay.
know we were kind of on the fence, but I think you know, we won't have a hard and fast policy. We'll obviously encourage as much participation as, you know.
Do you want that off?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hard, fast policy is the ballot,
Or the chairman of the committee,
or the chairman of the, yeah.
Or the appointing
Which we
authority.
had that discussion.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Singh, you mentioned something about adding something earlier?
I thought it would be on, it's not. It would be related to HR, but it would be a separate issue, and that would be to establish a committee that I think should have at least 2 members of the Board of Selectmen on it and Personnel Board as well. And that committee would be charged with looking at our hiring policies, procedures, evaluation processes, et cetera. There are certain, I can't go down the list, but I can say over the past many years now, we have made good hires, bad hires, wrong hires, and we have lost on several occasions. I can't get very specific, but multiple occasions, we've lost highly qualified candidates that we've never been able to then get back into this town, that I feel directly correlates to how we hire people. So I think that we should have a committee with Personnel Board and the Board of Selectmen to look at how we go about our business when we hire people to work for the town of Charlton, and whether it's town, police, fire, in any department, to ensure that we are putting the town in a position to get the best candidates it can get for any position in any department.
My first gut reaction is yes, I think it's a wise idea. I don't think we might not need a committee for that. It's something we can possibly task, to work with the new HR director to present to us what the current
I think that's
process
part of
is.
the problem. I think this board needs to be involved. I think the Personnel Board needs to be involved. Because this goes back from current time and also goes back to several years of repeated instances of the town, and I won't go into specifics, but I can go at least 4 or 5 instances, different instances, where this has occurred now. And at some point, we have to draw the line and look at how we're going about our business. And, you know, in executive sessions in the future, I can probably list off the different positions that we've lost out on, and we shouldn't have. And at some point, we have to ensure that we don't keep losing these good people, because Charlton deserves better, the residents deserve better, and the residents deserve to know that when we make a hire, we are not using practices that are excluding amazing candidates from any department in this town, which has happened repeatedly. So I think you need to have a couple BOS on it, Personnel Board should be involved, but we need to take a look at that.
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble?
Are you looking to revamp our hiring policy? Because I don't think the Board of Selectmen should be involved in the nitty-gritty business of hiring town employees. I think that's best left to Human Resources, the Human Resources Director, and the Personnel Board.
I think that they get direction. I think that in the past, that's been a part of the problem. That's why
Mr.
I
Swenson?
mentioned they should
Well-
be part of the committee, but you need to have other eyes on this as well.
I think the problem has been more a case of in the past, we haven't had an HR director, or we haven't had an HR department. And I think now that we have that person in place, I think how we hire and how we manage our employees is one of the cornerstones of HR. So I would be,
Then I would ask we have this conversation in executive session. Because there are certain things regarding certain hires over the years I cannot say publicly. But I would say it goes beyond HR, and I think this board needs to be involved.
I'm just a little unsure without any specifics.
And unfortunately, there are certain things I cannot say publicly. I will point out this board should be involved in this.
Mr. McGrath?
So make it an executive session,
A future item?
future item.
what I would ask.
I'm not sure that you can,
Yeah, I would
it's an
suggest that
exemption.
Yeah.
Mr. Singer talk with the town administrator and make sure that there is an exemption that the discussion would qualify for, so we can do it
Don't-
in executive
Yeah.
executive session.
I don't.
Ms. Craver?
I don't see an exemption here. If you want to talk about individual persons, and
I don't want to talk about individual
then
persons.
they would need to be notified that. there
Right,
would
I'm
be
not
an
asking you to
exemption.
talk about individual persons. If you are pushing for examples, I'm saying I can't give you those examples without executive session and probably those people being here. I'm saying I don't want to go down that road. I don't want to rehash the past. I don't want to have to come in here and give a list of, we screwed this up, this up, this up, and this up, which the town has done. Going forward, we need to be sure that those things don't continue to happen.
So,
And so we
but
don't
you're
wanna talk
saying
about
not to do
people.
those things, but you're not telling us what those things are.
No,
I'm just
but
confused.
Can
Mr. McGrath?
Can I make a suggestion, maybe? Dave, why don't you talk with Jessica over in HR? Talk with her and see what her suggestion is from the professional HR person, that how we go about this, or how to allay your fears that we continue stumbling over the same cinder block.
I can probably give her all the examples, because that's confidential with HR.
And then we can go from there.
Yeah,
That'd be
there's at
my
least 4,
suggestion.
just in recent memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
makes sense.
having a little more direction from that, I think would, give us more direction. I think that's what we're lacking right now, is kind of like, we want to do this, but we're not sure how we want to do it. So if you can work with Jessica to arrange a meeting, that we.
I'll talk to her about it.
I would also recommend that you read the personnel bylaw and the duties of the personnel board, because I think some of those things would fall into what you would like to have looked at.
Which is why I specifically asked in the beginning that they be involved.
So possibly having a conversation with the HR director and going to the personnel board with some of your concerns about policies, they can make some adjustments in policies if needed.
Perfect. Thank you for, I think that's a great thing to bring up, so I'll make sure we have a good trajectory on that. Mr. Swenson, did you have something you wanted to add to the goal policy reviews?
No, do we decide to take number 22 off?
I believe so, yes.
That was my only concern.
Mr. Singer, do you have anything else to
No, I
add?
agree. Quite a lot of talking to me tonight.
Yes. Mr. McGrath, anything else to add?
No.
Ms. Noble?
Nope.
Good. Can we get a motion to accept this as our FY 2018 Board of Selectmen policies? Goals and objectives? Do we need to do
So
that?
moved.
Second.
Yeah, motion and second. Any discussion? I think it was a good discussion we had tonight. Obviously, it was a great discussion we had during our workshop. And I think this is a good set of stuff.
Jeff is very good.
Oh, always. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you all. All right, we'll now move on to the town administrator's report. Unless anyone has any committee reports.
No, I guess we'll go back,
Okay, fair enough.
at least from my aspect.
Do you want to give an update on the public safety building?
Yeah.
Just because we had talked a little bit about maybe coming to town meeting?
Yeah, I guess so. So we had a public safety building committee meeting last Thursday, I believe it was, and we're probably gonna come to town meeting and talk, and there's a possibility of coming to town meeting for purchase of some property that we've been looking at. One of the other things that we've done is we've asked the town administrator to put out an RFQ for somebody to do some analysis on the site to see, how many, first of all, see pretty close to the square footage that we need, and with the site that we're looking at, would it be all right with it? To the layman's eyes, and some of the professionals that are on the committee, it appears that it's more than meets what we need. We just want, we want to have the documentation so that if we do decide to move forward with this at the special town meeting, that we have everything, our ducks in a row.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Ms. McGrath? See, now we'll move on to the town administrator's report. Ms. Creever?
Yes, sir. 2017 Mass Works Funds. As you know, the 2017 Mass Works Funds grant was due August 4th. This is also the project that was discussed when the Lieutenant Governor met with the board. Attached is a letter from Senator Ann Goby and Representative Paul Frost and Peter Durant supporting our application. The status and reconstruction of Potterville Village Road Bridge. I asked Highway Superintendent Voskis to provide an update on the Potter Village Road Bridge project. He has stated that the town has signed the reimbursement agreement with Mass DOT and should receive it back around August 15th, at which time we can proceed with the preliminary design and all related surveys. These will be sent to the Mass DOT for review. 90 days is the typical time frame for this review to be completed. At that point, final design will be completed and sent back to Mass DOT for approval. If all goes well, the actual construction of the superstructure would be started and completed in the 2018 construction season. With many details to be worked out through this process, this would be a general overview of what needs to be done to make this project a reality. FY 2017 Maya rewards credits. We have been notified by Maya, our insurance company, that with their staff and coordination of municipal interdepartmental reward submissions, we have received $5,956 in rewards credits. Kara Hemilowski works with the departments to keep them updated on trainings through Maya. MCPPO Design and Construction Contracting from May 24th to the 26th. I attended and completed a 3-day seminar for the MCPPO's Design and Construction Contracting. This program promotes most effective, ethical, and modern purchasing practices, dialogue, and exchange of ideas, and best practices among procurement officials, stewardship of resources in the public's interest, and compliance with Massachusetts contracting laws. Southbridge Water Department report on quality. The Southbridge Water Department provides a yearly report on water quality and leaves quite a few on the table in the hallway for the town, for those interested. This report entails information on items such as where does my water come from, treatment techniques used by the Southbridge Water Department, special precautions. West Nile virus. James Philbrook, our Charlton's health director, received the attached news release from the state public health officials announcing moderate risk for the West Nile virus in 36 communities, and asked each town to put the information on their websites, which we have. This brings the total number of communities at moderate risk to 59, spread across 8 counties. They are encouraging everyone to use the tools of prevention, including applying mosquito repellent with the EPA registered ingredient, wearing clothing to reduce exposure to skin when the weather permits, draining standing water to prevent mosquito breeding, and repairing window screens to keep mosquitoes out of your home. August and early September are when they see most of the infections in people. For more information, you can go to www.mass.gov DPH mosquito. Charlton is low to moderate risk.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the town administrator? Thank you, Ms. Craver. Is there any other business unknown at the time of posting? Yes. Sir? Just make sure you state your name for the record and address.
Russ Jennings, 39 Hammond Hill Road, Charlton. I'm coming before your board this evening for 2 separate issues. One concerns my business, and I'm questioning why I wasn't placed on the agenda this evening for liquor license permit when I had a discussion with Ms. Craver and the building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer, about being placed on the agenda for such. So I don't know who sets the agenda, but my last discussion with Ms. Craver, I believed I was going to be placed on it. So,
Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. We do not place them on the agenda until all of the information is back, and we do not have all the information back.
my understanding was that the approval was going to be denied, or recommendation for such, by Mr. Meskis to the board. I asked that the permit be moved ahead forward anyways, regardless, because it was not, Ms. Craver said, why would you want to be placed on the agenda if the permit's going to be denied? And I said, I would like to continue with the permit. You know the date involved, which was this weekend coming up, which is what we were seeking a permit for. So I would still like to have, as maybe someone call it, my day in court with the board. to discuss the subject matter with yourselves, who are the decision makers. And bottom line, Ms. Craver reports to this board. So when you have a problem with the employee, naturally you go to their boss, who is yourselves, and not on the agenda, so I'm questioning why. And
I will just repeat, Mr. Chair, that we're treating 508 the exact same way we treat everyone. No one comes on for you with a request unless we've received all the information.
And Ms.
And if
Craver,
it takes an extra 2 weeks, then we wait the 2 weeks until we have all the information to bring before you.
what information were you you're waiting on?
We have not received Mr. Meskis's report yet.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Singer?
So I'm a little concerned, because even if Mr. Jennings was going to have a request that was going to be recommended to be denied, I agree with Mr. Jennings that, not to put it that way, but he has the right to be denied, to have the opportunity to be before this board. So as long as we are giving Mr. Jennings in 508 the same courtesy and respect we give any business, I have no problem with that. If we start treating Mr. Jennings differently, that's not okay. I just want to be clear with this.
I also want to add that I don't recall him asking specifically to be on this agenda without all the information. So it's not my understanding that he wants to go, he was going forward without being denied. We had a long conversation of quite a bit of time. So there were a lot of things said. So I did not have the impression that he would be coming tonight to complain that he's not on the agenda. And certainly when he saw that the agenda was posted, he never contacted my office to say, I'm not on the agenda, why?
Mr. McGrath?
So my concern here is that if we, as a town, want to hinder somebody from getting a permit, we can delay it by a town official withholding information or not acting on it in a timely fashion. And I'm not saying that that has happened here, but I'm just saying that that is not the way we should be doing business.
Mr. Singer?
I will say it. I'm also concerned about the comment that Mr. Jennings may have been told by someone, I won't say names, but, because I don't know. But to have a resident say, why would you want to be on the agenda? You're not going to get it, or those weren't the exact words, but that's not right. Regardless of whether or not the recommendations to approve or to not approve, every resident has a right to come here before this board and to have this board look at it. And no resident should ever be told, why would you want to come? It's not going to be approved anyway. That's rude and unprofessional.
For
Mr. Jennings?
point of clarification, I received the 3-page letter from Kurt. I believe it was 3 pages. And that was his summation, if you will, of what his recommendation was going to be towards the board. And that's what struck the conversation between Ms. Craver, Mr. Meskis, Mary Devlin, and myself, at which time Ms. Craver is the person who said, I'm unclear as to why you would want to go before the board with the permit if it's going to be denied. And I said, that's really irrelevant for the conversation. It's my right, and I'd like to have the conversation with the board. That was the conversation. I'm sure maybe Mary Devlin or Kurt might recollect that if Ms. Craver's memory doesn't serve her.
Actually, it sounds like something I probably would have said in trying to understand if Kurt was sitting there saying that he's not going to move forward or recommend or lift his cease and desist, then if he did not get the occupancy permit, I can actually see myself asking him that question. If you're not going to get the occupancy permit, why would you want to be on the boards? And again, it's been the board's decision and pretty much policy that we've followed that nothing comes before the board until everything is in. And certainly we are open to, and we'll follow whatever the board wants to do a policy, so if you want to change it.
Mr. McGrath?
But if 508 received their notification from Kurt, then we should also had the notification that it was Kurt's recommendation not to approve. It still should have come onto the agenda. If that's the case, okay, you know, I don't want to beat this to death, but I don't want, what I really don't want is to see us try and stymie somebody by delay tactic.
Mr. Singer?
I just want to agree very strongly with Mr. McGrath. It's not a question of, you know, in this town, in this board, you can't be taking sides. There's the right way and there's a wrong way. We want to do things the right way. Every resident, Mr. Jennings included, has the right to come before this board to have that answer. Even if the answer is to be declined because of a recommendation of Mr. Meskis, who has the right to make his own recommendations, but you have the right, and this board should be aware of it. Those decisions should be made in back rooms about, you know, we're not going to have someone come before the board. You know, the answer may be no, as long as
I have
we
to
can't treat them differently.
I need to object because it's making it sound like that our office has made a decision on what comes before you, or we're trying to, in a back room, keep things from you, and that is not the case. The reason we had the conversation with Mary Devlin was she is the one that puts this information in front of you. You have requested that all the information be correct and done before it comes before you. Therefore, the conversation with him was, is all the information done correct? Is it ready to go? Again, I don't recall him saying, I want to be on the agenda no matter what. And if I missed that, then my apologies, but I don't believe that that was the case, because I certainly would have come to you and said, he requested it, it's not been put on because we haven't received all the information. Kurt is in the back. If he would like to come up also and join this conversation, I would probably appreciate that. I will also state that we've been having some conversations, especially now since Russ is in front of us. According to zoning, the zoning official, they have a cease and desist and we're not supposed to operate. They did operate last weekend, and we're having conversations on what that means. They're also advertising for next weekend.
Well, not to sidetrack the issue. I think that's totally irrelevant to the discussion, and this isn't the time or the place for that discussion.
I think that we've been trying to manage a lot that's been going on at 508.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think this instance right here is the most public record, public instance of record yet to date that you yourself have actively tried to block my business. There's 4 or 5 other instances that I think I'll be putting together in a list and submitting to the board, and, you know, I can't tolerate it anymore. When you're purposely not placing me on an agenda, knowing time is of the essence, yeah, that's a big problem. And I don't want to be here in this chair. I don't want to be complaining. I don't want to be looking into the policies, the procedures, the dates and times when other people submit liquor licenses, the zoning associated with such. But when it boils down to it, and I'm being looked at under a microscope, I would expect everyone else would get the same policy and procedure.
So a question then,
sure,
to put out there. In the past, in my experience, this is a unique situation for a application for a liquor license. We have not approved many licenses in the past. Have there been any, so I look to, you know, some of the more senior members here, has anything like this occurred and happened to the board?
From my experience and knowledge,
I can't think of an instance where we've denied
I also don't
the
think
liquor license, but I also, and the point I was going to bring up is I can't remember a time where there was a liquor license applied for that wasn't brought forward because the paperwork or whatever wasn't complete. I've never heard of that being the case before.
I concur with Mr. Swenson. I would also add, I don't think there's been a case in the past where this board has not gone with the recommendation of Mr. Meskis, the police chief, the fire chief, on the recommendations. But at the same time, along with what Mr. Swenson just pointed out, we've never been in a situation where we haven't been given the opportunity to have that conversation on the agenda.
That's the only question at hand.
Yeah, and also,
Well,
I think
I
we've
can
been in a
also-
situation where the applicant has a cease and desist.
Well, that's
Again.
another point. We haven't had a case where there was a cease and desist in place.
I do want to say that there are
Mr. President,
applicants that will come
Mr.
in
McGrath.
and ask to be put on this board without having all their paperwork, and they've been denied.
Mr. McGrath?
So my question is, does the zoning enforcement officer look at every liquor license application that we have to make sure that the people that are applying for the liquor license have the correct site plan use, and are they in the correct zone to do such?
Per your policy, it's the police chief, fire chief, and building commissioner, zoning
Okay,
enforcement.
so Kurt looks at all of them?
Mhm.
That is correct.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure that, that's the litmus test, that we're treating everybody the same.
And just to, this is a very unique situation where we have a location that's not been finally approved.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, and that's why I wanted to come and talk to the board. But the point's really irrelevant now because I wasn't placed on the agenda. I missed the opportunity, and therefore, the events that I had planned, unfortunately, my business is going to suffer in the way we're doing business because of such. And we planned accordingly and got the information in time. But it's really irrelevant. The only thing I'm here for tonight on that subject matter is the fact that I wasn't placed on the agenda. And whose responsibility was that or is that? So that's why I came to ask the question.
I have a question. to the
Ms.
chair.
Noble?
So you say the only piece of paper we're waiting for is Mr. Meskis's report?
I believe so. Mary puts all the information together, and when it's all ready to go, it gets on the agenda. She's not here this week.
Okay, so where's the report then? Where's the report?
I don't
That's
have
what
it.
I'd like to know. Where's the report?
I provided a report to the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen that would deny the application
When did you do this?
a couple weeks ago.
Do you have a date?
Was
I
that,
don't have it.
was that for this?
Yes,
Was
that
it-
You
was
already
for this series of licenses.
So you did provide the report. The report, your recommendation was in it. So I'm going to say our town hall did not get the paperwork process together in a timely manner to get into the Board of Selectmen packets. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, if he submitted the paperwork that was for this license 2 weeks ago, that would have been in the packet. So I was under the understanding that we were still waiting for something. So if that's
So then it's not the
true,
report that we're waiting for, because obviously that was done. So I'd like to know what additional documentation we're waiting for and why. it
I'm
wasn't
going to
moved
have
forward.
to let you know that then.
Okay, thank you.
Also, no one's going to answer Mr. Jennings' question, I will. The agendas are set by the chair of the board with the town administrator. Usually the chair sets the agenda, and then when selected person's asked to have items added to the agenda, it's up to them to add the items to the agenda.
And the
I
chair
think
will-
there's also usually like a notice, I don't know if it's a week or two, but usually there's some.
There's a posting.
Posting requirements to get things on the agenda, but that is how that process works.
And I will be the first to say that if all the paperwork was in and he was not placed on the agenda, then that's our office's. That, I would take responsibility for that.
Okay. But if you say that there was paperwork missing, I take you at your word.
That's my understanding.
Okay. But we'll figure out what happened.
Thank
Make
you.
sure he's on the next agenda.
Wow.
Whenever you can. The other thing that I had questions about from my last visit, let's say, we talked about some satellite parking and things like that, and Mr. Meskis gave his opinion. Now, in regards to the Blueberry Festival that recently happened, there was some satellite parking at the Federated Church and also at the Maynard Field for the Charlton Arts and Activity Center. Were you aware of that, Mr. Meskis?
I'm not aware of any of the activities of the Blueberry Festival, except that there was a Blueberry Festival and it was around Fort Dresser Hill.
Okay. One of the documents I have this evening is from the Office of Public Safety and Inspections. I don't know if, do any of you guys have a copy of this dated the 25th of July?
If you'd like to submit it for the record, we can add it to our minutes.
Is anyone aware of the memo? Robin?
Yes, actually, I just read it.
You are. Just now, or have you read it in the past?
No, I just read it.
Okay. Just to
I do
sum it
want to
up.
just clarify that this
Sure.
is, the Maynard Farm is under, I believe, the Recreation Commission or the Conservation Commission. I think it's the Recreation, but just,
Well, I'm not sure. You would know that. You're the manager of the town. You're in charge of that, right? Ultimately, you're the town administrator.
yes.
So you would know those details. Anyways, what it is basically a cease and desist, is it not? Advising the town not to use that property because of the ADA issues and such? Is that what the memo states?
I just received this today.
Maybe
so
we can
I-
ask Mr. Meskis.
This is clearly marked first notice on the first page. It is a letter that I have seen a couple of weeks ago. It was delivered to me and the Recreation Commission by certified mail. I spoke to Mr. Gerard about it. He and I visited the site. It points out that there are accessibility issues on that site based on a complaint. The complainant is unknown, and it gives us notice that we need to make arrangements to repair these. Mr. Gerard and I have visited that site, and I spoke to him as recently as this morning about it, and he had another site visit with a local engineering company to develop an RFP for services to do design to comply with this order.
So my question is, based off the date of July 25th, coincides with my last visit here, the Blueberry Festival was 5 days afterwards. So having the event 5 days afterwards would clearly show that the town did not hinder the cease and desist letter.
I would,
And-
Mr. Jennings, I would say this is not a cease and desist. Where on here does it say cease and desist? This is a notice of violation of ADA. The town hall
Correct.
was in violation of ADA for a long time because of not having an elevator. So you're saying we shouldn't have been operating the town hall, even though we didn't receive a cease and desist?
I don't know, that's your decision, Joe. That's not mine. I'm here asking the question, and I'm only reading the letter, and it says that, the board also has the authority to impose fines of up to $1,000 per day per violation. Days at the field are used, is that a violation? I guess what I'm getting at overall is that you've talked about my business, and, that's under the microscope, while I think that much of the town business is not being addressed. And why are we looking at other businesses throughout the community under a microscope and not addressing our own town business, the town?
Mr. Jennings, I would heartily disagree with that. If you listen to what Mr. Metzger said about how they're currently in the process of addressing it, of going through the request for quotes, they're notifying the correct people who are doing this. They are actively trying to address the issues with this notice that, hey, you're not in compliance with having a portable toilet or in the correct walkway. Where this is not saying you must cease and desist your operations, this is saying this is not ADA compliant. and that we're actively, as soon as we receive this, actively pursuing fixing it.
Well, I guess my question goes a little bit deeper into the procedure where, okay, we're going to be having a blueberry festival. We knew about this in advance, right? Everyone knew about it. Is this happening in a safe place? Are the correct things in place to make sure that this happens in a safe manner? Is parking addressed? Police, fire, handicap accessible things, all of those items. Are those looked at when we're going to have an event? I mean, when I have an event at my property, those are all the things that are looked at. Why is the town any different? I'm very confused why I'm being treated at a different standard, and now you get a letter in the mail, and it's no different than the letter I get in the mail, and,
Mr. Jennings, the letter you received in mail was a cease and desist to not have any events.
No, that's not what it's about zoning issues, and that's an interpretation issue. And Kurt is here offering you an opinion. That's a zoning issue. That's not a Board of Selectmen issue. So they're two very different things. But, again, I'm just a citizen bringing this issue before you and just asking questions for clarification. That's all. So.
So,
Can
Mr.
I say
Chair,
something? I'm sorry.
Ms. Graber, then Ms. Noble.
Okay,
I would defer to Ms. Noble.
Ms. Noble?
thank you. I appreciate you coming here tonight, and I appreciate all the trials and tribulations that you've had in starting up your business. But in reading through this and picking out the legalese, what's different in this letter than what you're talking about is a phrase here at the bottom that says willful noncompliance with its regulations. So in order to try and apply the same standards, they would have to determine that this particular entity at 10 Dresser Hill Road was willfully non-compliant. So while I appreciate you using this as an example, it's not the best example that you could have used. And were you at the Blueberry Festival?
I did drive by.
I was there walking around, and I saw ramps, I saw handicapped accessible parking. I didn't see the issues that are described here at 4 Dresser Hill Road. This is for 10 Dresser Hill Road. So again, I know you're trying to use this as an example, but I don't think it's the best one that you could have used, because in this instance, you really are comparing apples and oranges. So again, I appreciate you being here and bringing this to our attention. I'm all for fairness and justice, but this wasn't the best example you could have used.
Well, I'm not saying it is, but I really don't want to be here giving you examples.
I know.
That's my bottom line. I don't want to waste your time and mine. And I think a lot of our time could be better spent in a lot different areas, truthfully. So.
Mr. Swenson?
I would ask that for our next meeting, that the town administrator prepare a summary of what transpired here. Was the paperwork in? When did the paperwork come in? Where was the ball dropped? Because, I mean, regardless of any circumstances for going, I mean, it's the responsibility of us as a board to see that everyone is treated fairly and equally and justly. And I think if a ball was dropped somewhere, even innocently and inadvertently, I think we have to own up to it, and let's find out.
Absolutely, and if that's the case, definitely learn and grow from that. And I think I can safely speak for the board is that we have every intention of being fair and equitable.
I've never felt any different about your board, and that's why I wanted to come before it.
I appreciate that. So make sure our next meeting we'll discuss that, and we'll take a look at that. And if we need to address anything, we'll address it then.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Have a great night. Is there any other business unknown at the time of posting? Mr. Swenson?
Can I throw out one thing? And again, my apologies, this is the first time I missed the goals and objectives meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But I had one thing that I would like to, if we can revisit that, if no one objects, is I would like to see as a goal, and the town administrator will shoot me daggers for this probably, but I would like to see the town administrator go on our cable access station at a regular interval and just give updates on what's going on in town.
You want to State of the Union.
I don't want to State of the Union. I've seen it done in other towns. I've watched other local access stations where that happens. And I think it could address a couple of the issues that were brought up in our goals and objectives. It could encourage community participation. It could encourage volunteerism. If people had more of a sense of what's going on in town. It could be something as simple as where we stand with, the Casella project or things like that. I think it could be. I think another thing it would accomplish is make the town administrator more visible and more a part of the community.
So to jump on Mr. Swenson's bandwagon, we started doing that a few years ago with town meeting, actually more than a few years ago, where before town meeting, they would go on and just discuss about the warrant and the articles. And it was well received by the people of Charlton to get a heads up and understanding of what was going on. I think Mr. Swenson has a great point. It doesn't have to be a weekly thing, but it's maybe a
maybe
quarterly.
Well, maybe monthly. I would say no less frequently than monthly. Or it could even be 10 or 15 minutes, but I think it should be.
So I think we should have a live stream in Ms. Craver's office.
Oh, we do, right there.
We do, yeah. I just, like I said, I've seen it done in a couple of other towns, and I think it's a very positive thing. And as I did read over the final list of goals and objectives, I think it could help in accomplishing at least a couple of those.
But I also would extend that to us too. We are also the face and the leaders of the town, so something we can do is possibly share that burden.
That's right, but I just think, meet the town administrator, or whatever we call it, and it's the first Monday of every month at 2 in the afternoon, or whatever it is, but I think it should be something that's on a regular schedule, so people know if I tune in at this time, I'll get to see Ms. Craver giving an update on what's happening. I know.
No daggers.
Okay.
I'm happy to do it. I have, we did one on electricity aggregation. I'd be glad to do it.
Well, I would also just counter that the town administrator kind of does this at every one of our meetings for her town administrator report.
Yeah, but I think it's different.
Okay.
And I'm going to be told, the one that keeps popping into my mind is Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury does it.
I didn't get that job.
I know you. Well, wait a minute. In the back of my mind, I was saying, if you had gotten that job, but I said, no, I'm not going to go there.
You're watching Shrewsbury.
My mom lives in Shrewsbury.
Oh, okay.
My mom lives in Shrewsbury, and she's elderly, and I spend a reasonable amount of time over there with her, and she watches it. So I've been there when she has watched it. And I said, it's kind of, I think it's kind of a cool thing. Particularly we have a large community up at Overlook that may not be able to be as mobile as they would. Nuts and bolts, and it can get pretty dry. So I just think if there was a half an hour, ideally a half an hour once a week or a half an hour once a month, which you just sat down at a regularly scheduled time, this day at this time, and said, here's what's going on, this is where we are, the Exxon thing is moving forward, and just the different things that are going on. We have a new town HR director, we have a new finance director, we know there have been issues with parking and traffic flow up at the new Treehouse Brewery, we'd like to have them in town, and we're working with the state and blah, 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 just that kind of stuff.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it could promote citizen participation. I think it could promote volunteerism. I think it could promote relations between the town administrator's office and the community.
Just to refine that a little more, I think 30 minutes might be stumbling into the long and dry even something like, you can share like a minute with the admin or something, a minute with the administrator, being able to provide those like small chunks of updates.
I'm not locked into any format on it. I just think, conceptually, it's something that could be good for the townspeople.
Cable access people.
Exactly, I'd say let's work, I'd like to see us, as a goal and objective, to work with the Cable Access Committee to put together something that makes sense.
Do we need a motion on that, to add it to the objectives?
To amend the, yes, we did accept our.
So moved.
Oh,
No, second.
To clarification, Mr. Singer, what is your motion?
To request town administrator, I won't be specific, we'll be vague, work with Cable Access to come up with some kind of comfortable and workable solution for a format for her to be on Cable Access any to be determined number of times a year, to just foster the community activism, volunteerism, and more information dissemination. There you go. It's a long one for Mary to type that one up.
And I'll second that, and I'm going to offer the first point of discussion. Another thing, the reason that had this floating around in my mind is at the last candidates night, there were a lot of statements made about the town administrator and the town administrator's office and what it did do and didn't do, and it was just bad information. And I think this would be another way to allay some of that misinformation that can get started.
I think that's a very good point. Obviously, the first one could be a trial run, and it could be a trial and error. So.
Trial, no error.
No, I don't believe there's going to be many errors.
And seeing as you brought it up, I will say, if you did get the job, you would be doing them.
I'm
I
sorry,
have no
trial and
problem
iterate.
doing them.
Trial and iterate. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that?
No.
Do you have any feelings on this, Ms. Graver?
I welcome the opportunity.
That's what we'd like to hear. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Other business?
Other business? Other business? Other business?
Yes, I did try to bring this up earlier, but Mr. Jennings left, which was, and I'm going to ask, Sergeant Dow may have some more information on this. As you know, and I tried to talk about this while he was here before he left. 508 International did hold a event.
Should we not have this information without him here?
I tried while he was here, so I'm just giving you information, and if you want to put it on the next agenda and invite him here, I think that would be appropriate. But, again, this information has just come in. I want to let you know what the town is doing at this point. Because there's a cease and desist, and he did operate, I've had conversations with the zoning enforcement officer. He is looking at what remedies he has. We have been having conversations with town council, and he is still continuing to advertise another event for next weekend. And during that conversation that I'd had with him and Kurt, we were trying to work something out at the time. But he has been informed that if he does try to do it's my understanding that he has been informed that if he does try to move forward with the event, that he will be shut down. And it's been unfortunate that, our hands for, I think what we had the conversation about was that there would be a $50 fine. And to continue to do those events and just accept the $50 fine is not, it's disingenuous, I think, as to what the spirit of what the board and the planning board has instructed on that company. So I understand that he's angry because we are moving forward and we're trying to hold his feet to the fire. Again, if I've made a mistake, I'll certainly make sure I take care of that. But it's unfortunate, and I did want to let you know that that's happening. And I believe, did you have a conversation with him today?
Just a minute ago.
Okay. Because I had talked to the chief, and he said you were having a conversation.
I'm sorry.
Sergeant Dow, could you please come forward?
I just had a conversation with Mr. Jennings briefly in the hall. I spoke with Chief Charette earlier this afternoon. When you said he, I thought you meant Mr. Jennings.
No.
Mr. Singer?
So what was the direction of
sorry.
the chief today?
The chief advised me, Chief Charette advised me that this weekend's activities would probably be shut down if 508 didn't resolve two issues with the Mr. Meskis from the inspector's side of it and the planning board.
Mr. Singer?
I also want to just let you know that the event that's planned has to do with the state police, and it would be very embarrassing and is putting the town in an awkward position if that's out of compliance and there's an event that's moving forward.
Mr. Singer?
I simply want to reiterate the importance, whether it's Mr. Jennings' business or any business, that if there is any paperwork just going back and forth on this, that there are written records with all the i's dotted and t's crossed and that everything's in order and that there are no missing documents. So we don't want to, I don't want to be surprised in 2 or 4 weeks about something that happened while there was a phone call, but there's no record. We want to make sure that Mr. Jennings and 508 are treated as anybody else, and if there is any paperwork, whether it's Mr. Meskis, police, or our office, it needs to be done right. That's all. I want to make sure we are all on the same page with that.
Mr. Swenson?
I just want to make sure that we have ourselves covered here. When the order was issued, we have the legal ability to fine for noncompliance or for violating the cease and desist. Do we have the legal authority to shut it down?
This would be, well, there's two different questions here. You've got a zoning question and you've got a public safety question.
Excuse me, sir, to the chair.
Sergeant Dowd?
I would definitely speak with Chief Shred about this matter tonight or tomorrow morning. However, my gut tells me that it's a civil matter. People on a property that you don't want them on. You may need to get an injunction, you may want to talk to town council. As far as the police department isn't going to physically remove people from a private piece of property due to a zoning issue without some type of court order to do so.
Yeah, that's my concern, if we have the legal authority to shut it down.
So without going into a whole bunch of stuff, and I think you guys want to do an executive session, the town of Charlton accepted a non-criminal disposition procedures, it's a 21D ticket, which is, as I recall, and every time I do this, I go and look at what the number is. It's $50 a day per violation per day. Okay, and I gave this verbal testimony to the board several weeks ago when asked what was the procedure.
Yep.
We have had discussions with town council, we may speak with other council, that the next step could possibly be a court injunction. Okay, but we have to do some further research on that, and what the burden of getting that injunction is, we're not quite clear on. It seems like we're on the right path, but as you're aware, we're dealing with, in this issue and some other issues, some very complex issues that deal with land use, that deal with value, that deal with livelihood. And I'm always extremely careful about what I do and what I say in these cases, because I don't want to put the town in a bad position, I don't want to put myself in a bad position, and I want to be, as we all do, fair and equitable to everyone, because those landowners do have rights too.
I feel better. I just want to make sure that we're doing the proper, doing due diligence and proper research before any steps are taken.
Mr. McGrath?
Through the chair, Kurt, and you can either answer this or say that it's not germane. What are the outstanding issues over there right now that is holding him from his occupancy permit?
The planning board met last Wednesday night, agreed that the project was substantially complete, had a recommendation from the consulting engineer that a bond or surety or whatever of $168,000 be put forward. When that was put forward, they would release to me that they were satisfied, and I, on Thursday, had a complete temporary certificate of completion ready to issue. That bond did not come forward, henceforth no temporary certificate was issued.
So the ball's in their court.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and just reiterate, you know, obviously, we want to treat, and we strive to treat everyone equally. But like Mr. Meska says, this is very complex and kind of uncharted territory for the town dealing with this.
Through the chair, the planning board over the years has had people provide surety of bonds, especially on a project where the town has some liability with road openings and stuff. They post that bond surety before they even start. This is just the opposite because it's a private development, but yet they're asking the town to do something a little bit more lenient for them so that the town wants to be covered financially. And I think the planning board's been very reasonable. So.
My comments were just for the whole licensing and,
Yeah.
situation.
Good evening.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sergeant Dowd.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other business unknown at the time of posting? Seeing none, our next regular selectmen's meeting will be September 12th. And I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I make a motion that we enter executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body regarding the clerical union, Southbridge landfill litigation, IMA, Casella zoning appeal, and number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate, which is the Exxon Waterline Pump Station land purchase. If the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Thank you. We have a motion, do we have a second? Motion is second, and the chair does declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the public body, and that we'll be exiting executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go by roll call vote. Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Ms. Noble. Aye. Mr. Swenson.
Aye.
Mr. Singer.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're now in executive session at 9:25 p.m. Our next meeting will be September 12th. Once again, we will exit executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. Have a great night.